Chapter 616. Lu Qing wasn't a reckless person. After he got off the plane, he gave Dragon King and Empress Luo a call, so that the club wouldn't catch him off guard. After confirmation, Dragon King had gone to the military base, but Empress Luo was in her office. Unwilling to wait, Lu Qing declined Ning Zitong's offer to send a member of the assistant team to pick him up. Instead, he took a taxi to Longhu Club. With a smile on his face, he stepped through the door. Under the shocked gazes of the security guards in the guardhouse, he followed the pattern of the dark-colored tiles and walked through the wide corridor. He stopped at the elevator door and habitually didn't register. The security guards also habitually let him in. Ding-dong. When the elevator on the left arrived, the metal doors opened. A tanned, skinny young man with a parted hairstyle walked out slowly. He was Huang Bin from the assistant team. He had his head down and was flipping through the documents in his hands. Just as he left the car, he sensed something and instinctively looked up at the guest who was about to take the elevator. And Mr. Lu. Huang Bin recognized Lu Qing and got a shock. The documents in his hands fell to the ground and scattered. Long time no see. Lu Qing chuckled and helped Huang Bin catch the documents. His palm didn't look special, but it seemed to cover the surroundings and didn't let a single piece of paper fall to the ground. Sure, long time no see. Huang Bin received the documents in a daze. Talk to you later. Lu Qing stepped into the elevator and nodded. Huang Bin nodded hurriedly and stared blankly as the metal doors closed. Just as Lu Qing reached the 5th floor, walked through the corridor, and knocked on Empress Luo's office door, news of his sudden appearance in the club had already spread through the airwaves. What? Lu Qing is here? In the assistant team's office, Amen and the rest were shocked. Lu Qing is here at the club? Asked the valiant Lu Xiaofei in the reserve team's training ground. She looked at the masculine and tough leader, Tu Zheng. Tu Zheng frowned and said, "Someone from the assistant team saw him." A year had passed, but he was still stuck at the level close to physical invulnerability. The pressure on him was getting stronger and stronger. Many of those who were as famous as him had yet to make the breakthrough. Only Go, one of the Xuanwu sect, and Meng Liang of the Shirvo Island had succeeded. Regardless of whether it was Ji Run of the Daxing Temple, Ming Shi of the Shangqing sect, Qing Feng of the Shushan study, or Wang Xian of the Yanjiao sect, they were all still stuck. The Dragon's Gate was not so easy to leap over. He's really going to return to the Pro League. The muscular and round-faced Yu Wangyuan said thoughtfully. Lu Xiaofei nodded and said, "It seems that his sequela has been resolved." With his momentum back then, without this 1 year of delay, who knows what level he would be at now? Sun Jianlin, who was like a passerby, said with some emotion. Jia Lu, who had been watching the show from the sidelines, rolled her watery eyes and chuckled. No matter what, he's back. I thought it would be the low-level professional league players who came back first. Tu Zheng relaxed his eyebrows and spoke with the authority of a captain. Since he's back, he's still our teammate. Try not to mention anything about his injuries. Also, no matter what he went through, I believe that his foundation is still there. All of you, including me, have to buck up and not lose to him. As young Haipin players, Lu Xiaofei, Yu Wangyuan, and the rest were naturally competitive. Hearing this, they replied loudly, "Yes, Captain Tu." Knock, knock, knock. Lu Qing knocked rhythmically on Ning Zitong's office door. He heard a clear voice, "Come in." He opened the door and stepped in. He saw Ning Zitong sitting behind a dark red desk. Her hair was down and draped over her shoulders. Her facial features were beautiful and elegant. Taking a deep look at Lu Qing, Ning Zitong shook her head and smiled. Your generation of heavenly sons of the era really lives up to their name. None of you fell behind. 2 of them made the great leap at the age of 23, and 2 of them achieved physical invulnerability at the age of 22. As for the living Buddha, there was no need to mention him. Rinli turned 22 in July, about 5 months younger than Lu Qing. Of course, she started martial arts much earlier. Everyone worked very hard. As Empress Luo wasn't just praising him, she was also praising Priest and Chihuahua. Lu Qing couldn't be humble, and could only reply casually. As they had returned from Nile late, Peng Liyun and Renli were still practicing their respective sects' physical invulnerability chapters. They hadn't officially announced their promotions to the public. Ning Zitong leaned back and curled her lips into a smile. When I first heard about your breakthrough from the Dragon King, I almost thought that he had finally learned how to joke after 30 years. In the end, I'm old now. I can't keep up with you youngsters. What's even worse is that this kid didn't even rely on external help. He broke through the bottleneck and made the great leap on his own. Without waiting for Lu Cheng's reply, she stood up and said, "Let's go to the core team to meet our future teammates. As for the contract, I'll get your lawyer to discuss it later. You won't be mistreated." "Sure." Lu Cheng didn't seem to care much and smiled. In the reserve team's practice field, Yuan, who was doing relaxation exercises, said casually, "Lu Cheng is back again. Lu Cheng has returned to the team. Should we hold another welcome banquet?" "There's no need for that. Isn't this a reminder to him?" Lu Xiaofei shook her head and replied. She continued with anticipation. "I wonder how much he has recovered. Leader 2, why don't we bring forward the practice to tomorrow?" Her words made Jia Lu, Sun Jianlin, and the rest eager to give it a try. Tu Zheng finished his training. He held his phone, thought for a while and said, "Forget it. Let him get used to it for a few days." At this moment, his palm vibrated and a message came in. Tu Zheng lowered his head and his expression changed. He blurted out, "Lu Cheng has gone to the core team." "Him? A new teammate?" Long Zhen, who was called out by Empress Luo from the individual practice field, got a shock when he saw Lu Cheng. When he heard that there was a new physical invulnerability expert joining, he racked his brains but couldn't figure out who it could be. He was filled with curiosity and questions. There were limited physical invulnerability experts. Even if they didn't know each other well, they were still familiar with each other. Longzhen believed that if there was really someone who jumped ship, he would definitely have received news beforehand. As for those who had just broken through, there were only a few every year. Everyone was treated with respect. Not only was Longzhen surprised, martial arts fanatic Guojie was also shocked. If Lu Cheng had continued his momentum from a year ago, she would have believed it if he said that he had broken through to the physical invulnerability stage. However, he had been severely injured for a year, and was tormented by the aftereffects for a long time. How did he suddenly make the great leap? Beside her, the team member cum coach, Lu Yan's eyes flickered. He sized Lu Cheng up in shock and doubt. He was middle-aged, but his hair was already half white. His facial features were handsome and chiseled. However, one could sense his arrogance just by looking at his face. In the past, because the Dragon King gave Lu Cheng the exceptional treatment of a quasi-physical invulnerability expert, he had always avoided this heavenly son of the era. Ning Zitong was satisfied with the current outcome. She laughed pleasantly. He broke through in Nile at the beginning of August. After she finished speaking, she looked at Lu Cheng and raised her chin, indicating that she was ready to go. Lu Cheng smiled and took half a step forward. He opened his mind and showed the connection. Instantly, the surroundings darkened and a chill seeped into his bones. At the same time, sparks of fire appeared one after another, warming the surroundings. Seeing this, Lu Yan, Longzhen, and Guojie no longer had any doubts. However, they were caught in their own emotions and were momentarily speechless. Impressive, impressive. To be able to break through after a year of severe injuries and delay. You are indeed impressive. Longzhen was the first to give a thumbs up. I have the Dragon King in front of me and the army behind me. It's really not easy to become the leader of the club. He would never ignore the results of others and would sincerely praise them. However, he would never admit defeat and would not allow others to easily surpass him. If not for the past year of severe injuries and delay, I might have needed another 2 to 3 years, or even 4 to 5 years to break through. I might even never break through. Lu Cheng thought to himself calmly. Guojie's eyebrows relaxed. She nodded and said, "Let's spar later." As expected of the martial arts fanatic, Lu Cheng laughed to himself. Lu Yan, on the other hand, maintained his dignity and nodded. I have indeed underestimated you back then. Since you have made the great leap, you are fully deserving of being a member of the core team. At this moment, Ning Zitong flipped her wrist and looked at her watch. All right, I'll bring him to meet the reporters. They should be here by now. After Lu Cheng got off the plane and called, She instructed the foreign affairs team to contact the various media outlets in Huaqing. In the Longhu Club's conference room, the foreign affairs team had completed the preparations for the press conference. They say it has something to do with Lu Qing? A reporter turned to ask his colleague. The girl with chestnut red hair nodded. That's what I heard too. Lu Qing previously announced that he would be able to return to the arena in 4 to 5 months. That was the beginning of April. It's about time now. Did he join the Longhu Club again? The reporter who asked the question first guessed. He wore narrow-rimmed spectacles and was very fashionable. That's a good word for again. Another cultured reporter laughed. Lu Qing is going back to being Mrs. Feng. This idiom meant returning to one's old profession. It's a pity that Lu Qing has been delayed for a year. He has fallen out of the ranks of the heavenly sons of China. The female reporter with chestnut red hair sighed. At this moment, Ning Zitong and Lu Qing entered the conference room and sat behind the podium. This isn't important enough. There's only Empress Luo here. The reporter with narrow-rimmed spectacles sensed the abnormality. The cultured reporter nodded in agreement. Indeed, Lu Qing hasn't changed much. He's just more reserved. At this moment, Lu Qing had already changed into the navy blue Longhu Club martial arts suit. He looked steady and masculine, without a hint of a student's aura. Ning Zitong raised her hand to signal for silence. She smiled and said, I'm the only one accompanying Lu Qing this time, because he no longer needs the support of physical invulnerability experts. He already has the qualifications to sit here. Click, click, click. The cameras flashed continuously. The reporters quickly recorded Empress Luo's words, but they didn't understand the true meaning behind them. Ning Zitong cleared her throat and continued. I'm going to announce something now. Lu Qing has rejoined the Longhu Club and officially entered the core team. Indeed, he's rejoining the Longhu Club. The reporters were stunned at first. They split up and took notes. Then, they realized that there was something wrong with those words. They jerked their heads up and shifted their focus back and forth between Ning Zitong and Lu Qing. Core team? Official member of the core team of the Longhu Club? P.S. Looking for recommendation tickets and monthly tickets. Chapter 617. To the various media outlets, core team was what the Longhu Club called themselves and used in official reports. Most of the time, it had a more popular, more widely known and more accepted nickname. Physical Invulnerability Team. Any official member of this team was a physical invulnerability mighty one who had made the great leap. Connecting the dots, the meaning of Empress Luo was... The reporters retracted their gazes and looked at each other excitedly. Some were confused, some were at a loss, and some were excited. It was as though they had caught the scent of big news. Is it true? Did Lu Qing really make the great leap and reach the heavens? But he had just recovered from a serious injury a year ago. How could he become a physical invulnerability expert? His low point back then could be proven by his occasional Weibo posts. A comeback and a promotion seemed like two completely unrelated matters. Their eyes kept meeting. Because the news was too sudden, too shocking, and too unbelievable. The reporters forgot to raise their hands to ask questions. They were afraid that their guesses would make a fool of themselves. After a few seconds, someone finally stood up. A female reporter with chestnut red hair looked at Ning Zitong and asked in a trembling voice, Empress Luo, do you mean that Lu Qing made the great leap and became a physical invulnerability expert? The moment she said that, the reporters held their breaths. The conference room was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Ning Zitong looked around and smiled elegantly. Yes. With a boom, the entire conference room was in an uproar. The reporters whispered into each other's ears. They couldn't stop discussing. Oh my God, he just recovered. Was the news of his injury fake? No matter how fake it was, he wouldn't post a farewell on Weibo. Let me do the math. According to Lu Qing himself, there was hope for him to recover in July or August. In other words, he used a month to become a physical invulnerability expert? This is the speed of a living Buddha. After letting the reporters talk for a while, Ning Zitong smiled and said, If you have any questions, feel free to ask. The main character is here. There aren't many chances. The female reporter with chestnut red hair took advantage of the fact that she was still standing and looked at Lu Qing excitedly. Mr. Lu Qing, may I know when you made the great leap? They didn't doubt the authenticity of the news. After all, Empress Luo's appearance at the press conference was equivalent to endorsing the Longhu Club's reputation. Moreover, Lu Qing would definitely participate in top professional competitions and title matches in the future. Even if he could hide it for a while, he couldn't hide it forever. Lu Qing shifted the microphone and answered frankly, early August. Boom. The conference room exploded once again. Every reporter was extremely excited. The reporter with narrow-rimmed glasses raised his hand and stood up. He hurriedly asked, "When did you recover from your previous injury? How did you get injured?" Lu Qing ignored the latter question and calmly recalled, "Actually, I recovered at the beginning of the year, but there were some sequelae. In order to solve this problem, I made an attempt in March. You can treat it as a surgery. This attempt was very successful, and I completely got rid of the injury. After recuperating, I fully recovered by the end of June. In other words, you've made the great leap from the inhuman stage to the physical invulnerability stage in just a month." The cultured reporter stood up and asked. He had already thought of his headline. If Lu Qing answered yes, he would say comparable to the living Buddha. If not, he would say unbelievable. Lu Qing pursed his lips, deliberated over his words, and answered with a sigh and a smile. "You can't say that. Actually, I'm very grateful for this injury and the low point of the past year. It allowed me to truly find my own path. It allowed me to see my heart clearly, strengthen my will, and accumulate enough experience to break through to the physical invulnerability stage. This was the key to making the great leap." He didn't drop the book, but a sentence he learned in the past flashed across his mind. The sharpness of a sword comes from grinding, and the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. This line of words is pretty smooth. He didn't deny it, but he didn't confirm it either. The cultured reporter thought to himself. He planned to ask another question to enrich the content of his article. However, at this moment, he noticed from the corner of his eye that almost all the text reporters were writing furiously. It was obvious that they had started writing news articles in an attempt to snatch the headlines. This bunch of B** cheese. The cultured reporter threw away his question, thanked him hurriedly, and sat down to edit the content. "Core team?" Hearing Tu Zheng's words, the heroic Lu Xiaofei raised her voice. This was the place of her dreams, the goal of her dreams. However, it was so far away. Sun Jianlin was also puzzled. He frowned and asked, "Are you going to pay a visit to a physical invulnerability expert again? According to the rules, there should be such a process, even though this was the second time the other party had joined." Tu Zheng retracted his expression and couldn't help but turn solemn. Empress Luo and the rest have never liked complicated formalities. It was clear what he was implying. Things weren't that simple. Yu Wangyuan and the rest opened and closed their mouths. They fell silent. They already had a guess in their hearts, but they didn't dare to believe the answer. You must be kidding. Lu Qing might not be able to do that even if he was healthy for a year, let alone being heavily injured for a year. In the stifling silence, Yu Wangyuan spoke in a deep voice. "Perhaps Lu Qing has really become a physical invulnerability expert. How can that be possible?" Tu Zheng's speech was getting slower and slower, and his voice was getting softer and softer. It was as though he wasn't willing to face it, but he had to admit it. Jia Lu stopped looking at him like a bystander and sighed with a smile. "You don't say. I think it's true. He's a heavenly son of the era who creates miracles time and time again. Perhaps he has profited from his misfortune?" Tu Zheng opened his mouth and was about to speak again when he suddenly received another message from Optimus Prime, Long Zhen. He scanned the message again and again, and again and again. Finally, he believed that he wasn't hallucinating. After a few seconds of silence, he lowered his head and said, "Lu Qing has become a physical invulnerability expert." These 5 simple words reverberated in the training field of the reserve team, giving off a feeling that they were as heavy as 1,000 kilograms. There was another moment of silence. Lu Xiaofei stared blankly ahead. Her mind was in a mess, and she didn't know what she was thinking about. Yu Wangyuan was stunned at first, then shook his head and smiled bitterly. He shook his head again and again. Sun Jianlin took a deep breath and wanted to say something, but he swallowed his words. Jialu was also focused on the green brick in front of her. The patterns on it seemed to be filled with artistic beauty. She suddenly laughed softly and mumbled to herself. All right, now I don't have to be afraid of being left behind by him. Yes, there's no point in comparing a physical invulnerability expert to an inhuman expert. They had been left far behind, to the point where they couldn't even see the back of the other party. Yu Wangyuan smiled bitterly and said, some people are born to attack others. My self-confidence has been destroyed by him. Tu Zheng Lu Xiaofei, and the rest were silent again. Although they didn't want to admit it, they didn't want to lie to themselves. In the new campus of Songqing University, Yan Xiaoling, who was in her last year of university, stood by the window of the dormitory. She looked at the looming Weishui Lake in the distance and felt a little sad. She wanted to say a beautiful and elegant sentence, but when the words reached her mouth, she changed her mind. This water thief is King clean. If the school had this money, it would be great to subsidize the canteen. At this moment, her phone on the study table vibrated and rang continuously, as if urging her to do something. Who is it? Yan Xiaoling muttered to herself, walked quickly to her bed, and picked up her phone. She glanced at it and saw that Brahman had sent voice messages one after another. Did something big happen? Yan Xiaoling unlocked the screen in confusion. During her last summer break, she entered the terminal stage of laziness. She even rarely appeared in the QQ group, because she was too lazy to type or speak. She clicked on the voice message and put it to her ear. Yan Xiaoling was almost deafened by Brahman's sharp voice. Little Changya, little Changya, little Changya. Look at the news. Look at the news. Look at the news. Quick. 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 Seriously, she's already a girl in her second year of high school, yet she's still so unreserved and childish. Yan Xiaoling secretly mocked Brahman, who was almost 20 centimeters taller than her. She opened Weibo and browsed the headlines. A few seconds later, the familiar name and exaggerated title were reflected in her eyes. Lu Qing ascends to heaven, comparable to living Buddha. Returning from tribulation, Lu Qing attains physical invulnerability. Misfortune may be a blessing in disguise. The heavenly son of the era lives up to his name. What's going on? What's going on? Yan Xiaoling was stunned. She quickly opened the news and browsed the content. Longhu Club held a press conference to announce that Lu Qing has rejoined the core team. Yan Xiaoling read the opening sentence and finally understood what had happened. She suddenly burst into tears. She had been holding it in for a long time. Then, she smiled and paced back and forth excitedly. She even hummed the lyrics, "I've waited so long for this day." She cried and laughed, laughed and cried. After a few cycles, Yan Xiaoling sat on the chair in a daze with a silly smile, as if she had lost her mind. It wasn't until Mu Jinyan came in and patted her head that Yan Xiaoling came back to her senses. She logged into the forum and saw that everyone was in an uproar. Seriously, I can't express my feelings with words," said Unparalleled Dragon King in a rare state. Niechichi posted, jumping and jumping. "Wife, come out and look at God. Oh my God, is this what you call a damaged potential? This kind of damaged potential, I want it too." Laughed, all the good names are taken by dogs. Just as Yan Xiaoling joined in their celebration, Poison Milk Hierarch, He Xiaowei was browsing the relevant Weibo. He found that everyone was discussing how Lu Qing could make the great leap so quickly. They were all emotional and excited. Having suffered a few setbacks due to Lu Qing, He Xiaowei had learned his lesson. He chose to wait and see when it came to matters related to him. Yes, now is the time. He typed satisfactorily and posted on Weibo. I feel that the focus of everyone's discussion is not right. Let's guess how many years Lu Qing will take to get his first title. P.S. Looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Chapter 618. After posting on Weibo, He Xiaowei took a sip of water. When he refreshed the page, he saw many replies. It's over. I'm afraid Lu Qing will never get a title in his lifetime. To the one above, have you forgotten about the supernatural ability to reflect poison healers? I'm not sure about other things, but I'm sure Lu Qing won't get one this year. At the one above, why? Isn't it obvious? It's already September. Out of the 5 major title competitions, only the finals are left, and Lu Qing can't participate out of nowhere. The main competition is this year, and the finals next year. He won't get one even if he wants to. As a loyal fan of my idol, I think it's better to accumulate some good karma. Wisdom King took 3 years. Our Lu Qing should take 3 years too. Speaking of which, I'm reminded of Living Buddha. He doesn't have a title yet. Seeing the heated discussion, some even began discussing what title Lu Qing should use if he were to win the Battle of the Kings. He Xiaowei lifted his cup in satisfaction and gulped down a mouthful of water. As a human being, one must know when to yield and when not to back down. Take that all-knowing man in Jianghu for example. If he hadn't resisted back then, he would have taken off his face and kept it in his pocket. He wouldn't have fallen to the point where he couldn't get popular after changing a few accounts and had to leave the circle. In Wuyue Club, Lei Fong, who had just finished training, stood in the bathroom with his phone in his hand for a full 2 minutes. He was only wearing a pair of shorts, revealing his masculine muscles. He had planned to take a shower, but when he glanced at his phone, he forgot to turn on the faucet. Physical invulnerability, Lu Cheng's physical invulnerability. These words echoed in Lei Fong's mind, making him realize what had happened. Martial Uncle Lu's sudden appearance in Wuyue Club, and the use of the Polar Laboratory had the most direct and logical explanation. He had already attained physical invulnerability, and was assisting in his training. However, who would have thought of this possibility? Even if such thoughts had flashed through his mind, he would have denied it, laughed at himself, and racked his brains to come up with a more reasonable answer. Who knew that some things just don't make sense? The world is big, and there are all kinds of strange things. Some people were born to break the rules. After staring blankly for a long time, Lei Fong withdrew his gaze, took a deep breath, and slowly exhaled. Facing such a person, he felt that he had lost his passion for practicing martial arts. He might not be able to succeed even if he trained hard for 3 to 5 years, but the other party succeeded so easily. In comparison, what was the point of putting in effort? What was the point of training more than 4 hours every day? Disappointment and dejection surged into Lei Fong's heart. Hundreds of thoughts ran through Lei Fong's mind. Finally, he turned on the faucet and buried his head under the cold water. Drip, 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 drip. He forced himself to get rid of his emotions and kept encouraging himself. Lei Fong knew very well what it meant to be a physical invulnerability expert. Just the qualitative change in status was enough for him to grit his teeth and persevere. Retracting his head and shaking off the water droplets, Lei Fong suddenly laughed bitterly. Physical invulnerability was the boundary between a fish and a dragon, but some people could easily cross it. In the practice field, Zheng Yu and Qian Chiyue were looking at their phones in silence for a long time. So he has reached physical invulnerability, Qian Chiyue said after a while. Hearing this, Zheng Yu raised her head and said with a hint of understanding, "Master should have known long ago." He was probably thinking about this when he stood on the balcony that night. Did he feel that the new generation was better than the old, and that the new generation was better than the old? Qian Chiyue had a lot of thoughts and emotions to express, but when the words came to his mouth, only one sentence remained. The gap is really huge. When Lu Qing won the youth tournament of Xing province and rose to fame, he was still a little unconvinced and competitive. But as the years passed, he was completely numb and had completely admitted defeat. He felt that he couldn't catch up no matter how hard he tried. He should be more realistic and rational. Zheng Yu glanced at him and suddenly said with a sigh, "This makes me depressed, but also filled me with hope. Since Lu Cheng made the leap so easily, it doesn't seem too difficult to reach physical invulnerability." That makes sense. Qian Chiyue's mouth twitched. He nodded and turned to leave the practice field. When he was about to leave, he suddenly heard Qian Chiyue murmur, "But when we try, we might find that physical invulnerability is extremely difficult." The evening sun shone into the room and dyed it golden. Kai Zhongming's eyelashes, which were often ridiculed as girly, fluttered and his eyes slowly opened. Damn, why did I sleep for so long? He came back to himself and looked at the time on his phone. In the past 2 months, he had gradually taken over the family matters. He wasn't too busy and could still go on dates with Fang Yuan, who was on summer break. But because he was unfamiliar with many aspects, it caused a lot of stress. He was often tense and exhausted. He had planned to take a nap this afternoon, but it was already past 5. And in the evening, he had to attend a business cocktail party that he didn't want to attend. Lazily, he didn't want to get up. He said a few words to Fang Yuan, and casually browsed the forum and Weibo. After more than a minute, his eyes suddenly lit up. He was surprised and happy, but also felt that this wasn't F*King scientific at all. After receiving a positive reply from Lu Cheng, Kai Zhongming didn't rush to congratulate him. Instead, he sat up and looked out of the window with a smile. After a long time, he whispered to himself, "Dreams." The smile on his face widened. He got out of bed and put on his shirt, casual pants, tie, and suit. He put on some gel on his hair, and looked at himself in the mirror energetically. "Not bad, I look like a dog." Kai Zhongming praised himself. Then he couldn't help but laugh. "Damn, I even scold myself when I'm crazy?" If Chung heard this, he would definitely say that your crosstalk skills have improved. You can even perform monologues now. Jiangnan Province, Ji family's old house. With his hands behind his back, Ji Jianzhong paced back and forth. He was both happy and amused. "Sure, Jiangwo, that old bastard, that old bastard. He didn't even mention such a good thing to me." He had gone to the war-torn zones and made arrangements for Lin, Quebec. He couldn't say for sure that his grandson was safe, but the chances of him encountering greater danger had been reduced to a very low level. He had just returned to China and already heard that his future grandson-in-law had made the great leap and achieved physical invulnerability. To think that he wanted to train him. Opposite him, Dou Ning leaned comfortably on the recliner and scolded jokingly. "That brat didn't even mention it. Does she think we're outsiders? What time is it in Connecticut? I'll call and scold her. Then again, this brat has good taste. She's even better than me back in the day." 3 or 4 in the morning, Ji Jianzhong answered uncertainly. "Then we'll talk about it when she wakes up." Dou Ning felt sorry for her precious granddaughter, and decided to postpone the scolding. Just then her phone rang. It was from Yenjika. "Why aren't you sleeping in the middle of the night?" Dou Ning scolded as soon as she picked up the call. "I just sneaked out of bed to watch the press conference," Yenjika replied with a grin. "You still have the nerve to say that." Dou Ning recalled her earlier mood. "It's been almost a month since he made the great leap. You don't even know how to say a word to us." Yenjika laughed softly and explained in a light tone. "Hee, are you surprised? Are you surprised?" After the press conference ended, Lu Qing went back to Empress Luo's office. Ning Zitong rested her chin on her hand lazily, and moved the mouse casually. The club will give the core team members a villa or a high-rise mansion, all developed by the company. You can pick one later. If you're not satisfied with the location, you'll have to make do with it. In the future, you can sell or rent it if you want. "Okay, I don't really care now," Lu Qing replied with a smile. His wife was overseas, so it didn't matter where he lived. As long as the house was soundproof, had all the essentials, didn't have leaks, and had hourly workers to help clean up from time to time, it was fine. Remember to get your lawyer to discuss the specific terms and conditions. During this time, you should focus on practicing the physical invulnerability chapters of the Fire Sect. You don't have to play professional matches with us for now. When you're almost ready, there will be a master battle at the end of October or the beginning of November. Physical invulnerability experts can participate directly. Hee, that will be your first appearance at the top level, Ning Zitong said with a smile. She added, when practicing the physical invulnerability chapters of the Fire Sect, you should consult Lu Yan. Although he's not as strong as the Dragon King, arrogant and stubborn, he has his own unique points when it comes to mastering the physical invulnerability chapters and teaching others. The Dragon King benefited a lot from him back then. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let such a bad-tempered person be the coach. Sister Ning, why do you have to insult Coach Lu every 3 sentences? Lu Qing said amusedly. Ning Zitong replied nonchalantly. That's the truth. At this point, she recalled something. Pick a daily assistant later. Leave the trivial matters to them, and focus on practicing. Chapter 6:19. Okay. Lu Qing didn't intend to be unconventional and agreed casually. Seeing that everything was settled, Ning Zitong picked up the landline and made an internal call to inform the head of the logistics team to come over. She asked him to lead Lu Qing to the 5th floor to choose the exclusive rooms for physical and vulnerability experts. Compared to when he was at the inhuman stage, the resting room was much bigger now. It was more than 100 square meters. After entering, it was a meeting area that doubled as an office. The lighting was excellent. There was a door on the right, and after pushing it open, one could see a short corridor. On the left and right of the corridor were bedrooms and study rooms. At the end of the corridor was a bathroom with a wet and dry section. The sound insulation was good. After Lu Qing chose a room where he could see the lake from the bedroom, he realized that the head of the logistics team had already set up his laptop. He started to introduce the villas and high-rise mansions in a slideshow format. At the end, he showed the information of the members of the assistant team and casually mentioned their personalities, hobbies, abilities, and other details. Of course, no one was completely objective. When it came to people he was familiar with, on good terms with, or people he had visited before, he couldn't help but praise them. After listening carefully, Lu Qing leaned back on the sofa and smiled. Let me think for a while. Can you send the information to my email? No need. I'll just leave my laptop here. Call me when you've made up your mind. Why don't we add each other on WeChat? Said the head of the logistics team with a smile. Sure. Lu Qing agreed readily and picked up his phone. After adding each other on WeChat, the head of the logistics team added, You don't have to rush. Think about it slowly. You can even go and take a look. After all, if you want to move in, you'll have to do a thorough cleaning. Before that, which 5-star hotel should I book for you? I'll stay here for the time being. It's pretty good. Lu Qing pointed to the bedroom on the left side of the corridor. After seeing the head of the logistics team leave, he packed up the information of the house and sent it to Yan Zhiko offline. Which one do you like? Maybe it'll be our house in the future. Once chosen, the property rights would be transferred to his name. After sending it, he didn't expect a timely reply from his little fairy at around 4 in the morning. He looked at the chat history of a few groups and exchanged a few sarcastic words with little Ming. At this moment, he found that the offline file was being received. Yenjika's profile picture became bright. Hand holding chin, eyes rolling, said, If I hesitate and don't know which building to choose, are you going to sleep under the overpass tonight? Why are you awake? Lu Qing replied with a shocked expression. Hehe, this fairy knows that you have something to ask of me. Yenjika replied proudly. Lu Qing didn't expose the fact that she had woken up in the middle of the night to see the news of his return to the Longhu Club. He played along and expressed his astonishment, shock, and admiration. After the file was sent, the girl read it carefully for a while and communicated with Lu Qing from time to time. In the end, she reluctantly sent 3 pictures and said, These 2 villas and this penthouse all look good. I haven't seen it before, so I'm not sure. Don't worry. I'll take some time tomorrow to take a look and do a live broadcast. Lu Qing answered resolutely. Yenjika replied with an emoji of covering her mouth. Are you really going to sleep under the bridge tonight? I have an exclusive lounge. Lu Qing stood up and sent a video chat request. He sent the pictures of his bedroom, study, guest room, and bathroom. Not bad. Yenjika smiled mischievously. Then I'll think about it for a few more days. Oh right, help me choose an assistant. Here's the information. Lu Qing looked like a capable coach Yen. Yenjika replied. Eyes wide open expression. Why do you need me to decide on such a small matter? I don't know who to choose anyway. I'm not familiar with most of them. Even if I know them, I don't know much about them. I might as well believe in Coach Yan's insight. Lu Qing replied with an evil smile. Since you asked so sincerely, I'll help you choose one seriously. Yenjika unzipped the file and browsed through the information. In less than 2 minutes, she replied. Face serious expression. Amen. It's her. Why? Eyes wide open expression. Asked Lu Qing. I only know her and that guy with the surname Huang. The rest of the information is about the same. Yen Zhuka replied. Face red expression. When you left Longhu, didn't she also send you a message of encouragement? This shows that she's not the kind of person who flatters the strong and tramples on the weak. She has a good heart. That time when she accompanied me to watch the documentary at the exhibition hall, her speech and manners were not bad either. She obviously knows when to advance and when to retreat. That's true. Lu Qing nodded slightly and replied with an evil smile expression. I thought you would choose a male assistant. Yen Zhuka replied, clenching fist expression. I have confidence in you. Then, she added another sentence and deliberately sent an arrogant looking at the sky emoticon saying, I have more confidence in myself. I'm a little fairy. Without waiting for Lu Cheng's reply, she sent another message with an evil smile expression. When I was in Huacheng, if you needed extra training or were busy, I could take her shopping or something. It's not fun to be with a guy. That makes sense. Nodding expression, replied Lu Cheng. It was inevitable for a normal person to have a female partner when they were looking for a job. As long as they maintained their integrity and limited their interactions to what they needed to do, and did not do anything that could cause misunderstandings, they would not be afraid of gossip spreading. In the assistant team, the members who usually liked to interact with other offices had all returned, making it unprecedentedly orderly. They pretended to be calm, either typing furiously, pretending to communicate with the traffic team, or staring at the screen as if deep in thought. But every time they heard footsteps outside the door, they could not help but sit up straight and tense their backs. When they realized that it was not the supervisor, they would straighten their backs again. Among them, Huangbin held a cup to his lips but had no intention of drinking. From time to time he would turn his head to look at Amen, whose long hair draped over her shoulders. He had a vigilant and worried expression. Previously, when Lu Cheng was at the club, he communicated with her the most. He always felt that he was lacking a little. She was his biggest competitor. Luckily, the supervisor of the logistics team was from the same hometown and maintained a good relationship with him. He would definitely put in a few good words for him. Amen looked normal and was seriously working on the forms. However, the data was written and deleted and rewritten. There was no progress at all. In her mind, all sorts of thoughts were going through her mind. They were divided into pros and cons and kept debating. Among all the members of the assistant team, I am the closest to Mr. Lu. The chances of him choosing me is very high. Come on, this is only superficial. It can't compare to the introduction of the logistics supervisor. No matter what, I have never done anything that Mr. Lu hated. I even comforted him when he was at his lowest. Stop dreaming. You won't get such a good thing. Sun Tingting was the most relaxed, but she was in an unusually bad mood. In the past, compared to Lu Cheng, she believed that Tu Zheng had a higher chance of making the great leap and would be faster. She was so focused on pleasing Tu Zheng that it was almost impossible for her to be chosen. I should have bet on both sides, she thought in frustration. To the members of the assistant team, being chosen by a physical invulnerability expert to be their daily helper was also a great leap forward. Tick, 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 tick. The clock on the wall of the office ticked away. Huangbin and the rest finally heard the familiar footsteps of their supervisor. He was impatient and walked very fast. If he had something to do, he would break into a jog. All the members straightened their backs once again. Some of them subconsciously tightened their grip on their pens. The assistant team supervisor, Oyangda, looked around and revealed a rare smile. Amen, come out for a moment. Follow me to meet Mr. Lu. Amen's mind went blank, but she stood up instinctively. Sun Tingting and the rest were either slumped in their seats or exhaling. Disappointment was written all over their faces. Huangbin even crumpled the papers in front of him into a ball and threw it into the rubbish bin at the side. After a few seconds, Amen finally reacted. She hurriedly replied, Okay. As she spoke, she had already walked out of her seat excitedly and ran to the door. Even when she was standing beside Lu Cheng, she still felt like she was dreaming. I'll be troubling you in the future. Lu Cheng smiled and greeted her. Okay, no, it's what I should do. Amen stuttered but quickly regained her composure. She asked directly, Mr. Lu, is there anything I need to take note of? Lu Qing thought for a moment and said, I'm a rather boring person and don't like to chat. You have to learn how to entertain yourself. I won't disturb you if there's nothing, Almond quickly expressed. Lu Qing nodded slightly and said, help me choose a driver for the van. I'm not familiar with any of them. If you don't find one to your liking, get the human resources team to hire another one. I'll be staying in the club for the next few days. If there's anything, I'll send you a message. Okay. Two reliable faces appeared in Almond's mind. When she was about to leave, she couldn't help but turn back and say thank you a few times. After confirming the driver, she got off work. Just as she was about to take the bus to the subway, she saw a silver van stop in front of her. The driver, Zhao Zhenhua, rolled down the window and smiled. Assistant Almond, let me give you a ride. We'll be partners in the future. It's okay. What if Mr. Lu wants to use the van later? Almond immediately shook her head. I've already asked Mr. Lu. He won't be going out tonight. Besides, I have to go home, don't I? Zhao Zhenhua said with a smile. Almond nodded hesitantly. All right then. Although there was a traffic jam on the way, she still returned to her residence earlier than usual. She entered her own room. It was very small and cramped, with only enough space for a bed, a table and a chair. The cabinets were all mounted on the wall. Sitting by the bed, Almond was still in a daze. She couldn't believe that she had become the personal assistant of a physical invulnerability mighty one. She subconsciously looked around and thought of a lot of things. The Longhu Club gave new members of the assistant team a salary of 4,500 renminbi, with an annual increase of a few hundred RMB. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. However, in Huadu, fixed expenses such as rent, utilities, insurance, and pension took up a large portion of the budget. Even so, she still had to share the bathroom with many people. She had to queue when her stomach wasn't feeling well. Furthermore, she gave her parents 1,000 RMB every month, saying that it was for her dowry. She didn't have much money left to spend on skincare products, clothes, and online shopping. If the club didn't provide lunch, she might have had to scrimp. Once she became the personal assistant of a physical invulnerability mighty one, it was said that her basic salary would be 38,000 renminbi, and this was after deducting all taxes. In addition, there was also car allowance, meal allowance, equipment allowance, and the year-end bonus for the physical invulnerability mighty one's performance. Sometimes this was the real deal. Almond slowly came to her senses. Many thoughts appeared in her mind, the most intense of which was, I want to rent a new apartment, one with a private bathroom. At this moment, she received a message from the logistics team. Xiaoman, come and get your room key tomorrow. The Sky Capital Garden is for you. The club will let you stay there for free. It has 3 bedrooms and a living room. It's about 100 square meters. It's all yours. After reading it word by word, Almond couldn't help but lie down on her side. She hugged her big white bear and rolled around on the bed. She felt refreshed and her vision brightened. Chapter 620. After spacing out for a while, and letting her imagination run wild, Almond suddenly sat up. She found Ouyangda, the manager of the assistant team, on WeChat and asked him what she needed to take note of as a personal assistant of a physical invulnerability expert. She was excited, happy, and full of ambition. But at the same time, she was filled with a sense of crisis. She was afraid that if she didn't do a good job, all her previous efforts would go to waste and she would fall from grace again. Ouyangda needed to maintain a good relationship with the physical invulnerability experts. Naturally, he didn't want to offend their personal assistant. He told her everything he knew. At the end, he emphasized that the most important thing was to understand Lu Cheng's temperament. After all, every physical invulnerability expert had a distinct personality. She couldn't copy the experience of others. Otherwise, she would easily make mistakes. After thanking him sincerely, Almond stood up. She paced back and forth in the small space, thinking about what she needed to do at the moment. Mr. Lu has a habit of exercising in the morning. He lives in the club and isn't familiar with any training grounds at the moment. I wonder if the logistics team will treat Mr. Lu's breakfast attentively. Thoughts flashed through Almond's mind. She sat down abruptly and communicated with several other departments. She sent the information of the 24-hour training ground and the terrain of the forest by the lake to Lu Cheng via WeChat for him to choose from. Thank you. I was just about to ask you about this, replied Lu Cheng quickly. It's what I should do. Amin typed happily. She energetically adjusted her alarm clock so that she could wake up at 5:45 a.m. From now on, she had to adjust her sleeping schedule to match Mr. Lu's. She didn't want him to give her orders while she was still sleeping. I'll leave at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I'll take a cab to the club and supervise the kitchen preparations. Amin wasn't worried about the safety of taking a cab this early in the morning. Her destination was the Longhu Club. How bold would the driver have to be to take such a risk? In such top forces, even a weak-looking girl could have mastered the skill of dismantling a car with her bare hands. After booking a cab, Amin happily headed to the bathroom for a shower. Although she had to wait for a few minutes, she wasn't frustrated at all. She knew these days were over. After the shower, she took out the cleansing mask that she hadn't done in a long time and started taking care of herself seriously. She resisted the urge to tell her parents and best friends that she had become a personal assistant of a physical invulnerability expert. I'd better wait until I'm stable. After a quiet night, Lu Cheng went to the lakeside as usual. He breathed in the fresh air and practiced the physical invulnerability chapters of the Ice Sect. By the time he was done with his training, lawyer Lin Xiaokong, who had flown to Huaqing the previous night, had arrived. After a short chat, one went to eat breakfast, while the other went to face the joint team of the Foreign Affairs team, HR team, and legal team. Glutinous rice cake, Yinshui water, Xiaoshan special zongzi. Lu Cheng was very satisfied with the breakfast in the special restaurant. He couldn't help showing off to his wife and sent her several edited pictures. Yanjuka used to take pictures with his mobile phone. She complained that he didn't even have a beauty filter, so she downloaded a bunch of similar apps, including the kind that specialized in taking pictures of food. After receiving a hard knock on the head, Lu Cheng put away his phone and walked towards the door. However, he saw Lin Xiaokong returning with a smile. You're done? Lu Cheng asked in surprise. There's nothing to argue about. I've already given them what they deserve. How would they dare to make things difficult for a physical invulnerability expert? Lin Xiaokong took out a thick stack of papers. Flip through them. I'll give you a few words. You can sign the contract with Empress Luo directly later. He was in his 30s, thin and lean. His hair was neatly parted in the middle, and he wore a pair of black-framed glasses that said, "Everyone here is trash." Sure. Lu Cheng found a random table and sat down. Amin, who was keeping quiet beside him, tactfully asked Lin Xiaokong what he wanted to drink. A cup of hot coffee, no sugar, Lin Xiaokong replied casually. He looked at Lu Cheng and said, Your basic salary is 50 million after tax. It's slightly higher than the market rate, but it's still reasonable. Also, you will have a certain percentage of shares in all the companies and industries under Longhu. You can flip through them here, here, and here. In short, you're only receiving dividends and can't sell them. If you leave Longhu, they will be taken back. Also, in simpler terms, every time you win a title, you will have the right to choose which company to transfer a certain percentage of shares to. This will truly belong to you, even if you're no longer in Longhu Club. When the entire team wins the championship of the top professional competition, different percentages of shares can be transferred according to different contributions. Like the Dragon King, he's already a major shareholder of several companies. As he spoke, Amin returned with a tray. She gave Lin Xiaokong a cup of hot coffee and a glass of milk. Of course, she didn't forget to give Lu Cheng a glass of ice water. Lin Xiaokong nodded in satisfaction. He picked up the milk, poured some into the coffee, and stirred it with a spoon. He took a sip and continued. You're a core member of Longhu Club. This is equivalent to Longhu's board of directors. You have the right to decide on the plans for the industries under Longhu Club, the changes in management, and the various department heads of the club. If you're not good at this, you can hire a professional consultant. Don't worry. You don't need to be all-round to be a boss. You just need to know how to find professionals to solve professional problems. That's not a big deal. Lu Cheng smiled nonchalantly. His wife specialized in this. Moreover, after 4 years, her connections in the industry wouldn't be bad. Learning from a top master was the most basic benefit. You're getting into your role pretty quickly. Lin Qiukong laughed. Your senior sister doesn't care about anything and leaves everything to your brother-in-law. I'm about the same. The corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything. One more thing. As long as it's within reason, you have the obligation to accept the missions assigned by Longhu Club. How about it? No problem, right? Lin Qiukong asked. This is the part related to the military. Since Geezer sure had mentioned it in advance, Lu Cheng had an idea. He took a sip of ice water and said, That's what we agreed on. That's good. There's nothing else. It's too complicated and word-sensitive. If there's anything you don't understand in the future, give me a call. Lin Qiukong tidied up the thick stack of documents on the table. All right. How about the commission as usual? Lu Cheng asked with a smile. You can give me a discount. Lin Qiukong laughed. The two shook hands and waited for Amen to call Empress Luo's office. After confirming that they could go directly, they stood up at the same time and headed to the 5th floor to sign the contract with Ning Zitong, the representative of the club. After everything was done, Lin Qiukong bade farewell and left. Lu Cheng got Amen to go to the finance team to handle the procedures of deducting the commission from the club's salary. Ning Zitong led him to the quarantine area of the building where the Fire Sect's Physical Invulnerability chapters and the Volcano Laboratory were located. Don't apply for the use of the Volcano Laboratory for now. Wait until you've more or less mastered the Physical Invulnerability chapters before you consider it. Ning Zitong said with a smile as she walked. The Fire Sect is different from the Ice Sect. No matter how dangerous the Ice Sect is, it takes a certain amount of time for the effects to show. In the Fire Sect, the results can be seen in a few seconds or even in an instant. Think about it. If your mastery of the Physical Invulnerability chapters isn't firm enough, and you're in an extremely hot environment, the slightest mistake could turn you into ashes in an instant. There's no saving you. Wait until your foundation is solid, then take it slow and get used to it step by step. In the future, you'll definitely be like the Dragon King, using molten steel and magma as your environment. Okay. Lu Cheng also knew the difference between the Fire Sect and the Ice Sect, so he didn't have any objections. Of course, Empress Luo was being overly cautious. There was still a big difference between him and a physical invulnerability expert who specialized in the Fire Sect. If anything were to go wrong, the Ice Sect could save the day, so he wouldn't be reduced to ashes. Passing by the laboratory and passing through several alloy doors, Lu Cheng entered the physical invulnerability training room. The temperature in this room rose abruptly, making one feel as though they were in boiling water. The physical invulnerability chapters of the Fire Sect were divided into 9 small rooms. The names were engraved on the doors. Lu Cheng looked around and saw everything. First move, a single spark makes a prairie fire. Second move, golden flames of the righteous god. Third move, Lord Emperor's purple flames. Fourth move, flying flame meteor. Fifth move, burning mountains and evaporating lakes. Sixth move, wheels of wind and fire. Seventh move, fire-like invasion. Eighth move, mirage suffocating hell. Ninth move, 9 rotations of 5 flames, descend of the sun. Lu Cheng exhaled, warmed up his body, and happily walked towards the door of the first move. As long as Yenjika was in Connecticut, Lu Cheng would have an unshakable 1.5-hour break every day at 11 p.m. for video chats. After lunch and a short nap, he would continue training to make up for his previous training. At 3:30 p.m., he took the nanny van and headed to the 2 villas and a high-rise mansion that he had chosen the day before. He recorded the scene and checked the situation. Amen shamelessly knocked on the doors of the people nearby and asked about their living conditions. She also obtained more reference information from the property management. After some comparison, Yenjika chose the villa near Xiape Lake. The next day, Amen took Lu Cheng's notarized authorization and relevant documents and began to handle the property transfer. At the window, the staff member looked at Amen suspiciously and curiously after comparing the documents. He passed the documents back. What about his wife? The property transfer requires both husband and wife to have one. Wife? Husband and wife? Amen was almost confused. Shortly after, she came to a realization. Lu Qing is already married. Chapter 6:21. After getting the answer, Amen couldn't help but feel speechless. During this period of time, the hot news repeatedly emphasized Lu Cheng's age, so she could clearly remember his age without thinking. He was 22 years and 7 months old, and had just received his university graduation certificate not long ago. He's married already? Is it that super pretty girl from last time? Although China's laws state that one can register at the age of 18, there are still very few who get married at such a young age, be it for the sake of studying or martial arts. In the core team, Empress Luo and Coach Lu seemed to have spouses. However, he had joined the team late, and did not know much about his seniors. As for the other three, Dragon King was said to be a celibate, but he had a fixed female partner. He would change his partner every year. In any case, he did not talk about relationships. Everyone just took what they needed and parted on good terms. Optimus Prime Long Zhen had a girlfriend in the past, but they had been separated for quite some time. According to the rumors, he currently preferred to solve his physical needs through transactions. He had placed all his focus on getting his first title. As for martial arts fanatic Guijie, it was obvious from her nickname that she didn't have a husband, a boyfriend, or a pet. As her thoughts raced, Amen felt that she was being a little too ignorant. Unusual people do unusual things. As a heavenly son of the era and a physical invulnerability expert under 23, it's normal for Mr. Lu to do something different from others. There weren't any media reports before, so almost no one knows about it. This means that Mr. Lu doesn't want this matter to spread, at least not now. I have to keep it a secret. With this in mind, Amen looked at the staff again. She was in her 40s or 50s and didn't look out of the ordinary. She should be an auntie who doesn't care about martial arts. Moreover, the other party of the transaction is a real estate company under Longhu Club. Just from the surface, one couldn't tell that it was a club. As for Mr. Lu, other than his name, there was nothing else that could be leaked. Hello, may I know what other materials you need? Amen lowered her head and asked sincerely. Which agency are you from? You don't even know this? The staff nagged and gave her the missing information. Amen recorded it carefully and sent a message to Lu Cheng. She explained that it was a rule to prevent one of the spouses from hiding the property after marriage. It's my first time buying a house, so I really don't know. Not to mention other things, I even forgot to give the marriage certificate. I'm so stupid. Lu Cheng, who happened to have a break in the middle, felt ashamed. Taking advantage of the video chat, he told his wife about it, which made Yanjika laugh for a few minutes. That day, Amen's trip was in vain. After a few days, the documents were ready. She finally transferred the property and got the certificate on the spot. She began to contact the logistics team and sent someone to do an in-depth cleaning. After she was done with these matters, she returned to the Longhu Club and met Ouyangda, the manager of the assistant team, in the corridor. Little man, did you just come back from outside? Ouyangda asked in a friendly manner. Yes, to help Mr. Lu transfer the ownership of that villa, Amen answered succinctly. Ouyangda laughed when he heard this. You have to change your mindset. How can you do this kind of thing yourself? You have to stay close to Mr. Lu as much as possible, in case he has other matters to attend to. You're the personal assistant of a physical invulnerability expert, so you don't have to do everything yourself. You can leave it to the others in the office to run errands. If you encounter any problems, give the Foreign Affairs team a call. They have strong connections with the government and can solve any major problem. I'm still not used to it. Thank you for the reminder, manager. Amen was suddenly enlightened and found her problem. I'm still using the same old method to deal with physical invulnerability experts. However, there were some things that had to be done personally. Just like the transfer of ownership this time, if the Foreign Affairs team or someone else were to leak the news that Mr. Lu was already married, that would be a huge mistake. Amen thought thoughtfully. Ouyangda nodded in satisfaction. He turned to Lu Cheng and said, There's a political and business cocktail party tonight. They've specially invited Mr. Lu to congratulate him on his breakthrough to physical invulnerability. Ask him if he has time. If he doesn't, you can go on his behalf. If he doesn't have any clothes, go to the finance team to get an advance payment. Alright. Almond's mind immediately flashed with images of lavish clothes, beautiful hair, and high society parties. She suddenly understood a phrase that many people had mentioned before. Sometimes, a personal assistant was the representative of a physical invulnerability expert. They were qualified to stand together with high officials and tycoons. Being such an assistant seemed to be very busy. Almond thought that she would lead a busy and fulfilling life. However, after the cocktail party, she realized that she had become a free person with almost nothing to do every day. As for the reason, it was very simple. Almond was also very clear about it, but she couldn't do anything about it. From the beginning of September until the middle of October, Mr. Liu had been leading a monotonous and repetitive life. He would wake up at 5 a.m. and train at Xiape Lake until 7:40 a.m. After showering, he would arrive at the club in the nanny van and have his breakfast at the restaurant for physical invulnerability experts. He would enter the quarantine zone at 9 a.m. sharp and practice his techniques. He would return to the lounge on the 5th floor at 11 a.m. until 12:30 a.m. or even later. After lunch, he would take a short nap and start training again at around 2 a.m. Sometimes, he would finish at 4 a.m. and leave early to try out all kinds of food in the city. Other times, he would persist until 5:30 a.m. and return home after dinner. Such a life, day in and day out, could be described as an ascetic monk. Almond counted the things she had done in the past month with her fingers. She had followed the nanny van to fetch Mr. Liu to the club and send him home every day. She had helped him book a round-trip ticket to Connecticut in early October. She had redone his visa and stayed there for 5 days. She had booked a round-trip ticket to Gaofun and a round-trip ticket to Xiaoshan from Gaofun. She had checked the effects of the deep cleaning. She had represented him at 2 banquets. She had made appointments with the cleaning company under Longhu to clean his villa every 2 days. She had helped him book a few seats at various restaurants in Huacheng. She had connected with the property management and the logistics team and transferred the water and electricity bills directly to them. She had only done these things for more than a month. This was simply too boring. She felt that she had let down her salary of more than $30,000. Fortunately, Almond had found something for herself to do, and that was reading and learning. According to the supervisor, being the assistant of a physical invulnerability mighty one didn't require one to be an expert, but one had to be a jack of all trades. One had to know a little about everything to deal with different situations. Just like the former assistant of the Dragon King, she had enrolled in Huacheng's business school. Now, as the Dragon King's representative, she was on the board of directors of several companies. Putting down the book, Almond rubbed her shoulders. She glanced at the physical invulnerability training room and realized that Lu Qing hadn't come out yet. If Mr. Liu hadn't gone out from time to experience the delicacies of Huacheng's famous restaurants, I would have suspected that he was a robot with no other hobbies other than martial arts. Or perhaps he was a serious otaku who only knew about online entertainment. Just as Almond was letting her imagination run wild, she suddenly saw Ning Zitong walking over gracefully. Her hair was tied up, and she was wearing a loose martial arts suit. "Empress Luo," greeted Almond. "Good afternoon." Ning Zitong smiled gracefully. "He hasn't come out yet. Soon." Mr. Liu had made a reservation for dinner at 5:30 p.m. "He has to leave early. The traffic jam is bad there," answered Almond honestly. Ning Zitong chuckled. "Then you can help him cancel it. He probably won't go." Almond was completely baffled. In the physical invulnerability training room, the outer part of the room was a training area. Lu Qing was punching and kicking vigorously. As he unleashed his punches and kicks, balls of flames began to surround his body. They were either scarlet, blazing white, light blue, golden, or light purple. They spiraled and flew as though they were about to merge into one. Bam! Lu Qing threw a punch. The 5 balls of flames gathered and collapsed abruptly. A blinding light appeared abruptly. Following that, a violent wind and rolling flames expanded, causing the metallic hall to clatter and shake. In some places, there were even serious burn marks. This 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the Sun is still a little lacking. I haven't gotten started yet. Lu Qing kept his stance and sighed. Time was indeed a little tight. It wasn't like the Ice God sect where he had the help of the Polar Laboratory. He paced back and forth as he pondered over the details. Suddenly, he remembered the 9th move of the Ice sect, Boundless Starry Sky. Absolute Frost. This secret art wasn't complete. He used it as a reference, and created the Lament of the Ice Queen with the help of the changes in the Dan equilibrium. Now could he use this train of thought to master the 9th move of the Fire sect, 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the Sun? Just as Lu Qing was about to delve into it, he remembered that he had plans for the day. He took out his phone and glanced at it. Patting his clothes, he walked towards the door. He entered the password and went through a few heavy doors. When he saw Amen, he also saw Ning Zitong. Sister Ning, why are you here? Lu Qing asked in surprise. How is it? How's your mastery of the physical invulnerability chapters? Ning Zitong didn't answer his question. I've grasped the basics, but there are still a few moves that I haven't gotten started with. Lu Qing answered frankly. During this period of time, he hadn't participated in the activities of the core team. Instead, he focused on mastering the Fire Sect physical invulnerability chapters. He only consulted Lu Yan from time to time. He realized that this bad-tempered, middle-aged coach was indeed very experienced in guiding others. He had his own unique points. Most of the time, physical invulnerability experts trained separately and in different places. Ning Zitong smiled and said, "That's pretty fast." She changed the topic and said, "The master battle is in a week's time. Let's spar today. Familiarize yourself with the moves in actual combat, so that you won't be rusty." Spar. Spar with the core team? Spar between physical invulnerability experts? Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. For some reason, the image of the majestic figure of the Dragon King appeared in his mind. All right. He nodded his head, slightly trembling. Ning Zitong smiled and nodded. Let's go then. It's not suitable for us to spar indoors. Hee, at least we don't have to wait for a bye. The 6 of us is just right. After instructing Amen to cancel the appointment, Lu Qing followed Ning Zitong out of the building through the back door. They came to the other side of the lake. Scorch marks and potholes began to appear on the ground beneath their feet. In some places, they could even see colored glaze formed from the melted soil. After walking for a while, Lu Qing saw the Dragon King, Chen Qitao, standing proudly with his hands behind his back. Chapter 622. All around them, the trees were charred and the ground was dark. It was as if they had just experienced a huge fire. The Dragon King stood in the midst of it with his hands behind his back. His posture was tall and straight, and he looked dignified. He was like a black hole that attracted all the gazes, making Lu Yan Longjun and Guojie beside him pale in comparison. When he saw Lu Qing coming over, he merely nodded slightly without any words or other actions. Longjun, on the other hand, twisted his neck left and right, looking excited. Guojie's aura spread outwards, as though she couldn't wait. Lu Yan and Empress Luo were used to such situations, so they were unfazed by this little internal sparring session. All right, everyone's here. Let's draw lots, said Ning Zitong with a smile. As she spoke, she took out 6 balls of paper from her pocket. With a shake of her palm, she threw them into the air. Longjun reached out and grabbed, causing the surrounding air to heat up, forming a contrast between hot and cold. A strong gust of wind blew, causing all the paper balls to fly towards him. At this moment, it was as though he had the supernatural ability to grab things out of thin air. Pa. Lu Yan, Ning Zitong, and Guojie also reached out and used various techniques to grab the paper balls. Their powers competed in the air, creating a tug-of-war that caused the paper balls to fall and fly. However, they couldn't land on the ground. For the physical invulnerability experts of the Fire Sect, it wasn't difficult to communicate with the heavens and earth, affect the environment, and fight for items through thin air. The difficult part was to do so without destroying the paper balls. Given the nature of the Fire Sect's martial arts, the slightest mistake could cause the paper balls to burn to ashes. In fact, they could even ignite themselves if they were rubbed too hard. The sparring session starts with drawing lots. Lu Cheng, who was participating in it for the first time, watched with interest. His hands were hesitant as he muttered to himself. If I were to use the Ice Sex Blizzard, would that be considered cheating? I don't have to worry about destroying the paper balls. Just as he was hesitating, Dragon King made his move. He clenched his fist and placed it in front of him. A heavy feeling filled the air and tore at the hot air, causing the paper balls to fly towards him like moths to a flame. Spots of scarlet light came one after another, but they didn't ignite anything. However, the paper balls seemed to be at a critical point. Their surface was dry and brittle, and with a little more external force, they would burst into flames. This was the Dragon King's character. He was extreme, loved to go to extremes, and would not leave any chance for his opponent. Seeing this, Ning Zitong and the rest had no choice but to give up. They waited until the Dragon King picked up a paper ball and flicked out the rest before they tried to snatch another one. However, as the paper ball was already brittle and could easily fall apart, they restrained their strength and weakened the fight. They quickly drew their own lot and left the last one for Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng more or less understood that this was a routine. Without moving his feet or raising his hand, a cold gust of wind blew and sent the paper ball into his palm. Let's just draw lots normally in the future. Ning Zitong glanced at it and said half-jokingly. At this time, the Dragon King unfurled the paper and said expressionlessly, 3, 2. Lu Yan looked at his palm and said indifferently, 1. Which one of you is 1? Long Zhen stretched his shoulders and chuckled as he looked at Guojie and the rest. His scalp was so shiny that it could be used as a mirror. Lu Cheng looked down and saw a clear blue-black 1 written in the middle of the unfolded paper ball. I'm number 3. Ning Zitong waved the note. 2. Guojie's answer was short and to the point. She was slightly disappointed. She wanted to see the martial arts of ice and fire. Looks like we're in the first round? Long Zhen smirked as he looked at Lu Cheng. Although he was asking in return, he was already moving towards the center of the abandoned land. His eyes were smiling, and his fighting spirit was evident in every detail. Chen Qitao, Ning Zitong, and the rest retreated. Lu Cheng took a few steps forward and stood about 30 meters away from his opponent. In his eyes, Long Zhen, who was known as the Optimus Prime, was indeed very tall. Even without expanding his muscles and stretching his joints, he was more than 1 meters tall. He was definitely a giant of the current generation. Long Zhen's skin was tanned to a bronze color. Although his muscles were hidden under the loose martial arts suit, the heaviness was obvious. It made one wonder if his ankle joints could withstand that terrifying weight. The answer was yes. Not only could Long Zhen's legs withstand the weight of his entire body, they were also very agile. He could run and jump, and they were as tough as alloys. This was a fire sect physical invulnerability expert known for his strength. This was a veteran first pin expert. Those who had just made the Great Leap would be classified as third pin. Then, based on a yearly cycle of the lunar calendar, each third pin expert's chances of winning against physical invulnerability experts of the same third pin level, as well as their chances of winning against second pin level experts would be calculated. As long as one of the two reached the standard, they would be classified as second pin. Correspondingly, the evaluation of first pin was the same. Above that would be the experts who had defeated most of the physical invulnerability experts and obtained titles. Although Lu Cheng had killed 2 physical invulnerability level enemies, the Mummy and the Dark Night Bat, the former was only at the level of a third pin at his peak. The latter seemed to have only recently advanced. Relying on his various and mysterious supernatural abilities, he might be on the verge of a second pin. There was definitely a clear gap between him and a veteran first pin who had the ability to aspire for a title. More importantly, in that battle, the Mummy was heavily injured, and so was Dark Night Bat. The 2 heavenly sons of heaven on his side had joined forces and killed the Mummy at the start of the battle with a sneak attack. In short, the reason for his strength was relatively low. It was Lu Cheng's first time fighting a first pin expert who was in peak physical condition and mentally prepared. Of course, after mastering the Ice Sect and Fire Sect physical invulnerability chapters, his strength had improved tremendously. He was no longer comparable to when he was in Nile. This was a good opportunity to familiarize himself with his moves and find his position. Bam! Bam! Within a radius of a few dozen meters, the temperature rose rapidly. Clusters of crimson flames rose from the ground. Lu Cheng's short hair seemed to have been scorched a few times by an invisible heat. It started to bend, and there was even a burnt smell. The fight between physical invulnerability experts had changed from a pure mental battle to a battle between illusion and reality. His pores were affected, and his breathing became difficult. Without hesitation, Lu Cheng communicated with the heavens and earth and displayed his own characteristics. Against a first-pin expert, he couldn't think of any reason to bind one of his hands and compete only with the fire sect techniques. The heavens and earth seemed to darken, but certain places were brighter. It was as though stars were appearing one after another. Long Zhen narrowed his eyes and snorted. His aura was at its peak, and he seemed to have turned into a huge burning fireball. Heavy and scorching, he pulled and interfered with the resplendence in the surrounding void, causing them to either change their trajectories or shatter. Seeing the starry sky on the verge of collapse, Lu Qing knew that he was still lacking in maturity and couldn't fully utilize it. He decided to change his visualization. He enlarged a corner of the universe and concentrated his energy to show the stellar system. The stars gathered one after another, forming a blazing sun that was 70% illusion and 30% reality in front of Lu Cheng. It also felt heavy, but it was also glowing brightly. It clashed with Long Zhen's aura across space, pulling at each other and sweeping away all matter between them. It was like two neighboring stars clashing with gravity to determine their respective areas of influence. Whoosh! The air was torn apart and split into two sides, setting off violent winds. The clusters of flames on the ground also took their respective sides and ran towards their targets. This was the scene at the core of the battle. Long Zhen had the upper hand, but Lu Qing held his ground firmly and didn't lose ground. In the surrounding area, at the edge of the battle, the red flames were extinguished one by one. There was a gradual difference in temperature. The further one went, the colder it felt. There was even a thin layer of frost forming on the ground. Very good. Long Zhen suddenly roared. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Lu Qing in an instant, as though he was caught in the wind and flames. His thick, muscular arms first pulled back and then shot out. In that instant, Lu Qing felt as though he was looking at a huge cannon defending a city. It suddenly retreated, gathered its strength, and fired an earth-shattering shot. The extremely strong recoil passed through Long Zhen's back and spread to his knees and ankles. He slammed into the ground, causing the surroundings to shake. What kind of strength and power was this? This was a punch and kick derived from the fourth move of the fire sect, Flying Flame Meteor. For physical invulnerability experts, the battle was too intense and not the right time. Using a complete set of physical invulnerability moves could easily result in self-detonation. Therefore, conventional battles were based on the characteristics of one's body and focused on using certain techniques. That tanned fist was almost the size of a child's head. The pale golden flames clung tightly to it, forming only a thin layer. It was like a small part of an iceberg that surfaced from the water. It seemed to have enveloped the entire area, giving off a feeling that it was unavoidable. Lu Qing knew that this was due to the hidden fire virtue, which allowed the fist to change its direction at any time. Changing direction a few times consecutively made it easy to fall into a trap. This trend connected with the outside world and influenced each other's qi. Therefore, a punch could cover the entire sky. If Meng Qi didn't dodge, he could use force concentration and the fighting formula to counter the attack. He would be able to match his opponent in terms of strength, but the problem was that his opponent still had the hidden fire virtue. He wouldn't be able to use Emperor Yen at the same time when he used double outburst. This would cause the power of the explosion to be irresistible and hit him directly. While thinking, Lu Qing took a deep breath and activated his Dan force. He gently pushed out his palm to counter Long Zhen's attack with softness. Just as his palm blocked Long Zhen's terrifying fist, crystals suddenly gushed out and covered the golden flames in a thick layer of frost, delaying the explosion of fire virtue. Bam! In a clash of pure strength, Lu Qing was slightly inferior. However, he didn't suffer any damage because he used his palm against Long Zhen's fist. He took a step back and turned his body with a spin of his heel. All of a sudden, a storm of snow blew in all directions, covering his tracks in an instant. No one knew whether he had gone to the left or the right. It was a movement technique derived from the second move of the ice sect, mesmerizing snow step. Chapter 6:23. The northern wind howled, disrupting one's hearing. The dense snow obscured one's vision and made one lose sight. In such a white and cold environment, one couldn't see more than 3 meters away. Even one's mind couldn't reach that far. Boom. The fire force in Long Zhen's fist expanded, and the reddish-gold flames surged in all directions, melting many snowflakes and disrupting the path of the storm. It cleared a large area, as though it was a cannon blast from a main battle tank. However, after the explosion subsided, the wind returned, and the snowflakes fell again. Everything returned to white, as though a modern army had encountered the power of nature. In the eyes of the Dragon King and Empress Luo, the 70% illusory, blazing sun that Lu Cheng had formed didn't disappear as the storm engulfed it. Instead, it moved to the edge of the battlefield in a balanced manner. The further one was from it, the darker and colder it became. Chen Qitao watched for a while before nodding his head slightly. Whoosh! As the wind blew, Long Zhen felt as though he was in the polar regions and had encountered extremely bad weather. In such an environment, amidst the heavy snow, there would be a punch or a flying kick from time to time. Sometimes there would be a frenzied chain of attacks, a concentrated attack, and a few feints. Long Zhen couldn't grasp the pattern of the attacks and couldn't catch them. He could only react passively and rely on his spirit to judge and defend against the attacks within a 3 to 4 meter radius. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. Long Zhen was like an agile elephant. Punching and kicking, he blocked a few rounds of Lu Cheng's surprise attacks. He knew he couldn't continue like this. Focusing his mind, he changed his visualization and unleashed brute force. All of a sudden, the giant fireball that had fought with Lu Cheng's star across space appeared again. With Long Zhen at the center of the fireball, it suddenly expanded. The tumbling blazing blue flames were like ocean waves. Each wave was higher than the previous one. They surged crazily and almost filled the entire battlefield. They canceled out the storm, clearing the sky and emptying the earth. The indistinguishable scene disappeared, but Long Zhen couldn't lock onto Lu Cheng's aura. His heart skipped a beat. Then he saw Lu Cheng in his navy blue martial arts suit. He didn't know when he had retreated to the edge. Behind him was a huge, heavy, scorching, blazing white sun that was 70% illusory and 30% real. At this moment, he was like Emperor Yin descending. Bang! Lu Cheng stomped his feet, and using his body as a fist, struck out. The great sun was attracted and merged with him, causing his body to shine brightly. His figure faded and turned into a burning star. Rubbing against the air currents at high speed, he charged towards Long Zhen in an instant. A distance of a few dozen meters was really gone in the blink of an eye. This was also the application of the fourth style of the fire sect, Flying Flame Meteor. It highlighted the word fast, and used external forces to increase its power. The light in his eyes was so bright that he could not see anything. Long Zhen was a rank 1 expert who had experienced many battles. He did not panic at all. He clenched his fists and punched the air in front of him. The golden flames compressed and solidified, giving off a heavy feeling. The surrounding air currents and the soil on the ground were affected by this, causing sparks to appear. Bit by bit, they were densely packed like a prairie fire. Rumble. Just as the meteor came crashing, the golden flames exploded and collided violently with the violent impact of the other party, creating a terrifying hurricane that extinguished many of the sparks. Amidst the wind and waves, Long Zhen raised his arms and blocked Lu Cheng's sideways collision. Both of their martial arts suits were scorched black and had burned holes. Both of them were covered in dirt. Slash. Long Zhen was forced to slide back a few meters, leaving behind 2 distinct marks. Lu Cheng's momentum finally weakened. Bam! Before they could separate, Long Zhen had already launched a low kick. Lu Cheng did the same. The two of them struck with their elbows, knees, tangles, and grabs in the narrow space between them. Bursts of flames rang out one after another. Danger lurked in the moment, precision hidden in the millimeter as they walked on the tightrope. Bam, bam, bam. The continuous close-range combat made both of them feel satisfied. Lu Qing countered with his enemy heart-freezing move, which was a combination of danger premonition. He didn't appear weak at all. In this aspect, the fire sect physical invulnerability experts who weren't naturally proficient in close-range combat, although they also had the realm of all-seeing God, and sensed the minute details within a certain radius, they were still inferior to Long Zhen. Bam! Lu Cheng's forearm swung backwards, but was caught by Long Zhen's palm. He took 2 steps back, tensed his left leg, ignited a thin layer of golden flames, and lashed out at his enemy's knee. Just as Lu Cheng was about to lift his knee to counter the attack, Long Zhen's left leg suddenly emitted an implosion sound. Strangely, it changed direction and landed heavily on the ground ahead of time. The 15th move of the fire sect, Jet Spray, was derived from the second move of the physical invulnerability chapter, Golden Godly Flames. Bam! The ground shook under Long Zhen's stomp. The sparks in the surroundings gathered and erupted under Lu Cheng. Like an erupting volcano, they shot up into the sky. In his seemingly passive defense, Long Zhen had already left a trigger for his counterattack. His experience and ruthlessness were evident. Lu Cheng had just executed his move when he was faced with such a situation. The blazing fire dragon soared up from below, and was about to swallow him whole. He fell backwards abruptly and flipped in the air, allowing the crimson fire dragon to shoot a distance away. It brushed past his calves and soared into the sky, scattering like fireworks. It was this split second that allowed Lu Cheng to form an ice armor on his legs. It melted into water and dripped down. There were still some sparks left on his trousers, but they couldn't hurt his heat-resistant skin. They were shaken off. Lu Cheng had just steadied himself when Long Zhen pounced on him. He swung his arms and coupled with the rapid eruption of Dan force, he hammered ferociously and compactly. Each of his protruding muscles displayed the beauty of human strength, as though they could crush everything. Bam, bam, bam. Lu Cheng alternated between force concentration and the simplified fighting formula. He pulled his shoulders and struck with both arms, blocking his opponent's frenzied attacks with precision and concealment of force. Even so, under that monstrous strength, his fists, arms, and elbows were gradually numb. His legs couldn't bear the pressure and he couldn't shake off the attacks. Amidst the flame-like invasion, the temperature of the surroundings was getting higher and higher. Just a breath would burn one's airway. Lu Cheng's vision was also affected. Everything he saw was distorted. Bam, bam, bam. Once Long Zhen gained the upper hand, his attacks seemed endless until he defeated his opponent. The ground beneath his feet caved in. Sand and pebbles flew everywhere. It was a mess. His height was even more eye-catching, making his opponent look like a dwarf looking up at a deity. As expected of a first-pin mighty one, Lu Cheng couldn't help but sigh as he struggled to hold on. However, his ice heart was already formed. Such emotions were like a reflection in a lake, untraceable. Bam! Long Zhen struck again. Lu Cheng's sleeves were charred black, and his arms were trembling. He took a step back, leaving deep footprints on the ground. Taking a step forward, Long Zhen retracted his chi and then exploded it. He raised his left arm again and struck again with a hard punch imbued with fire force. At this moment, Lu Cheng opened his left hand and pressed forward with his thumb. A crystal-clear and sharp cold light shot towards his opponent's head at the speed of a bullet. Ice Spirit Holy Light could be used as both a blade and a sword. Long Zhen seemed to have expected it. He tilted his head and the cold light missed. It didn't affect the swing of his left fist. Seeing this, Lu Cheng turned his wrist and the cold light turned from a stab to a slash, cutting towards his opponent's neck. At the same time, he pulled his other shoulder back and changed from the front to the side, avoiding Long Zhen's punch. Piak! Long Zhen lowered his body and retracted his head into his chest like a tortoise facing danger. Even so, the explosion of his dance stage did not stop. With a shake of his right arm, it turned into a whip and lashed out. Lu Cheng once again used force concentration and struck his opponent's forearm with his elbow. Bam! He drifted away like a kite. Long Zhen was about to give chase and not give him a chance to cover his tracks with the wind and snow. However, his body suddenly felt cold, and his thoughts stopped for a moment. Lu Cheng had used the ice spirit godly light sword to buy himself a chance to use severe warning. He landed on the ground and swayed his center of gravity, as though he had turned into the wind and snow. He whistled again and escaped Long Zhen's suffocating and extremely aggressive attack. After a long battle, Long Zhen seemed to be a little impatient. He didn't hold back anymore. As his fists and legs collided, he gradually formed a ball of pale golden flames. After a dozen moves, he created a ball of blazing white and a ball of crimson red. These 3 balls of flames circled around his body. Each had a different color, making him look like a god descending from the heavens. In ancient times, ordinary people who hadn't seen much would have prostrated themselves before such a scene. The reason why 9 rotations of 5 flames, Descend of the Sun, was the ultimate skill of the fire sect was because it could be used to store power in a normal attack, allowing the 5 flames to coil around each other and not explode immediately. When the preparation was complete, it could be used at the right time without any restrictions. Of course, this was very mentally draining and would be quite a burden. Seeing that Long Zhen had already formed the 3 flames, Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. He felt that he couldn't allow his opponent to continue preparing. Amidst the wind and snow, he retracted his qi and blood and shifted the stars to form the fighting formula. Bam! As he released his qi and blood, his body suddenly grew. His martial arts suit tightened, and his exaggerated muscles were exposed. At this moment, Lu Cheng wasn't much shorter than Long Zhen. He took a step forward and threw a punch at his opponent's side. He wanted to use the most intense shockwave to ignite a ball of flames in advance. At this moment, Long Zhen suddenly revealed a cunning and smug smile. The crimson red, pale golden, and blazing white flames circling around him flew out and gathered at the tip of his fist. He didn't expect to use his ultimate move only after he had prepared all 5 flames. His posture just now was to force Lu Cheng to initiate the attack. Rumble. The ground trembled, and a mushroom cloud rose. A shallow crater appeared on the ground with burn marks everywhere. Lu Cheng closed his eyes and destroyed the first wave of shockwaves. However, the subsequent waves made his organs shake and churn. Long Zhen didn't give him a chance to catch his breath. He forcefully broke through the flaming waves and came close to him. Another round of fire-like invasion followed. The negative effects on his body had accumulated, and even force concentration couldn't completely remove them. Lu Cheng couldn't withstand this round of frenzied attacks. His stance was broken, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Long Zhen wins, announced the referee Ning Zitong, who was watching leisurely from afar. Lu Cheng took a deep breath and felt a burning pain in his throat. Long Zhen relaxed his posture and laughed loudly. Feels good. After recalling the battle, Lu Cheng, who had learned a lot, slowly walked to the edge. He saw Dragon King looking at him. Qin Chitao nodded slightly. Close to second pin. Not bad. When I fully master the physical invulnerability chapters of the Ice and Fire sect, coupled with the combination of martial arts and cultivation that I didn't use because I wanted to familiarize myself with the moves, my combat strength will definitely increase by a lot. Lu Cheng's gloomy mood after losing the sparring match was swept away. P.S. It's a sad thing. With the recent net cleanup, I have to delete the intimate scenes at the beginning. Actually, I was under a lot of pressure to write this. Many readers were wondering why such an upright squid classmate would go down the dirty path and become wretched. However, after thinking for a long time, I still decided to write it. Firstly, it's the feeling of youth and love, and secondly, it's hard not to have mixed feelings. Secondly, I wanted to write about the harmony of soul and body. Thirdly, it's to create and contrast the character. If I don't compare how Lu Cheng behaves in front of Ke to how he behaves in front of others, the image of him restraining himself for the sake of love can't be fulfilled. Similarly, it's the same for Ke. Sai. Chapter 624. After carefully observing the next 2 matches, Lu Cheng pondered over the details as he returned to his personal lounge. After a shower, he headed to the restaurant and tasted the delicacies meticulously prepared by the chef. Looks like it's going to rain again. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he took out a tissue and wiped his mouth. He rubbed his slightly bulging belly, and looked out the window at the cloudy sky. It wasn't even 6 yet, but the city was already dark. After lamenting, he left the restaurant and went to the side entrance of the club. Almond had already informed the driver, Zhao Zhenhua, to park the nanny van nearby. After a fierce battle, Lu Qing wasn't in the best of spirits. As soon as he sat in the car, he leaned against the soft and bouncy back of the seat, closed his eyes and held the armrest. He was half resting, half reminiscing and summarizing his gains. Almond saw that he was silent and confirmed that the audio-visual entertainment system was turned off. She picked up the walkie-talkie and whispered to Zhao Zhenhua to drive directly to the villa by Xiaopei Lake. Since they didn't pass through many congested areas along the way, the nanny van stopped in front of the villa after 20 minutes. Lu Qing collected his wandering thoughts and opened his eyes. He got out of the car, looked at the sky, and said to Amin, "You guys can go back. I don't have anything else to do here." Okay. Amin had more or less figured out Lu Qing's daily routine, so she nodded and waved her hand. "Goodbye, Mr. Lu. I'll come back tomorrow at the usual time." The engine hummed, and the sound grew distant. Lu Qing's surroundings became unusually quiet. After standing for a few seconds, he turned around and opened the door through fingerprint verification. The house was dark, as if night had come early. However, the faint light from the windows on both sides still faintly outlined the outline of the walls, pillars, and furniture. Lu Qing closed the door behind him and stood beside the shoe cabinet. He slowly looked around. On the coffee table that shone with a metallic luster, cups were neatly placed upside down. None of them were filled with hot water or emitted the aroma of tea. The huge TV stood silently. The screen was pitch black, without any light or sound. In the semi-open kitchen, the frying pan, saucepan, and milk pot were all in place. Compared to yesterday, nothing had changed. The night wind that was about to rain blew through the screen, bringing a bit of chill. Lu Qing stared blankly for more than 10 seconds. He didn't turn on the lights. Relying on his powerful vision, he changed his shoes and closed all the windows. Then, he walked up the stairs shrouded in darkness to the second floor, neither too lightly nor too heavily. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of footsteps echoed peacefully. There was almost no light in the corridor on the second floor, but Lu Qing seemed to be able to see in the dark. He accurately avoided the half-high table with the flower pots, and pushed open the door to the master bedroom. Compared to when he received the property, this place was already different. The layout had been changed quite a bit. The most obvious thing was that there was a recliner that could be used to sleep on next to the floor-to-ceiling window. On the other side of the door, there was a fully enclosed and spacious balcony with a swing-like hammock. He still didn't turn on the light. He walked to the side of the recliner and sat down. After a day of hard training and a fierce battle, his tired body sank into the softness that made every inch of his muscles feel comfortable. Lying down, he couldn't help but recall the conversation he had with his little fairy when they were discussing the layout of the master bedroom. "I want a recliner next to the floor-to-ceiling window. When I have nothing to do in the afternoon, I can lie there and bask in the warm sunlight. I can read novels and watch videos leisurely. When I'm sleepy, I can sleep until I wake up naturally. Do I need sunscreen? You're so annoying." The corners of his mouth curled up imperceptibly. Lu Qing lay quietly in the darkness, looking at the darkening night sky. He didn't seem to be thinking about anything, but at the same time, it felt like he was reliving the scenes of the past. Outside the window, the wind was strong, and so was the rain. Drip, 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 drip. 10 minutes later, his phone rang with a special reminder. He picked it up and saw Yenjika using an emoji of red scarf on head, determined to succeed. "I love waking up early. I love morning exercises." Lu Qing chuckled and unlocked the screen. He typed quickly, snickering emoji. "I'm enjoying your recliner comfortably." After replying, he turned on the desk lamp beside him. The dim but warm light spilled out, resisting the invasion of darkness and silence. After chatting with Ke for a while, he played games and read novels for a while. When Kai Zhongming, Jiang Fei, and the others finished their work or went home from work, he shifted his focus to chatting. On the way, he would occasionally watch the live broadcast of a martial arts competition and seriously discuss some interesting issues with Peng Liyun, Renli, and in Chaoyang in the group chat. When Yenjika finished her training and was enjoying breakfast, he began to share his afternoon sparring experience with his wife. They discussed how to use the Dan equilibrium to practice 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the Sun. When Yenjika got busy with her studies, the frequency of chatting slowed down. Lu Cheng went back to browsing the internet like before. Before going to bed, he called his mother, Qi Fang, and told her about his life that hadn't changed much recently. He also asked about the situation at home. Just like that, a day passed. After a night of heavy rain, the sun rose as promised. In the car, Lu Qing browsed the news about the places where he could see the sea. After breakfast, he returned to the training room for physical invulnerability experts. He calmly sat cross-legged in front of the visualization diagram of 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the Sun. My biggest problem now is that I can't form a fireball and keep it circling around me for a long time. It's hard to maintain it for a long time. In other words, I have to prepare it in one go and use it as soon as possible. Only then can I use one of the 2 most powerful martial arts of the fire sect. This is practically useless in actual combat. Lu Cheng recalled yesterday's training process and the content of his discussion with Yenjika. At first, he wanted to imitate the experience of comprehending the vast starry sky. Absolute frost. During the Dan equilibrium, he wanted to suppress the ice spirit force, shrink the darkness, and highlight the stars and Emperor Yen force. He wanted to use this to activate 9 rotations of 5 flames. However, after careful consideration and discussion, he realized that this also required him to use his killer move as soon as possible. He couldn't just stand there and wait for others to attack. He didn't even have time to form a fireball. However, 5 fireballs of different natures circled around his body to maintain balance. Isn't this similar to the starry sky of the universe when he reached the Dan equilibrium? Starting from this train of thought, Lu Qing came up with a solution. Since physical invulnerability experts can connect heaven and earth, influence their surroundings, and almost become one with nature, why can't they treat it as a whole? Within the whole, they can form a rotating balance. Their bodies are cold and dark, and they can rotate in balance with the surrounding fireballs. This definitely requires the mind to act as a bridge between the 2 sides. However, the 9 rotations of 5 flames, Descend of the Sun, is a unique skill that requires the mind to make a complicated connection to maintain the 5 fireballs circling. In other words, there's no need for me to practice this difficult technique. There's a more convenient, simpler path that suits me. A path that integrates the inside and outside. Thinking of this, Lu Cheng was suddenly enlightened. He stood up abruptly, took a deep look at the visualization diagram, and strengthened his understanding of the charm. Then he left the small room and returned to the practice field outside. He put on a stance and stood steadily. A starry sky appeared in his mind and rapidly enlarged. Darkness was at the edges, and the sun was in the center, forming the image of the heavy Emperor Yen. His fire force circulated. As the visualization changed, a faint purple fireball condensed around his body. At this moment, the starry sky of the universe in Lu Cheng's mind was mainly dark and cold. Using the connection between his mind, root pulp, and the outside world, he guided the faint purple fireball to rotate in a stable and balanced manner. During the process, Lu Cheng felt that this method didn't cause much of a burden on his mind. Suddenly he had a plan. If the rotation of 5 flames follows this pattern, I can maintain it longer than normal methods. Very, very long. Tithe. That's too many changes. Lu Cheng tried to condense a second fireball. After the visualization diagram changed, his mind, root pulp, and organs all changed. The faint purple fireball around him lost its balance and crashed to the ground. Boom. An explosion occurred. The alloy was dented and the cracks were obvious. Looking at this scene, Lu Cheng learned his lesson from his failure. After repeated trial and error, he finally found a solution, which was to maintain the balance of rotation between stars while condensing other fireballs. A few days later, he had 5 fireballs of different colors revolving around him, and maintained them for a long time. Lu Cheng was in a good mood after finally mastering the 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the Sun. While resting, he bragged to his wife, Then he browsed the news and saw eye-catching news. The 4 heavenly sons of China are competing for the first time. All of them have attained physical invulnerability before the age of 24. The Super Platinum generation is about to meet Zhihai of the north, Luqing of the south, Liyun of the east, and Renli of the west, who will challenge the Dragon King and the Warrior Sage in the next few years. After browsing, Luqing suddenly remembered something. The Grandmaster battle is coming. Tomorrow, I'll be heading to Jiuqiu City with Long Zhen, Guijie, and the rest. As for the Dragon King, he didn't need to go. He was the current generation's Grandmaster, waiting for the challengers. Chapter 625. Recalling the Battle of Masters incident, Luqing glanced at the news headlines that were either on steroids or had funny words. He switched to QQ and clicked into the group that he had blocked. He saw Peng Liyun, Renli, and An Chaoyang in a heated discussion. He swiped his thumb and scrolled up the chat history. At the beginning, it was a link to a news article sent by Hipster. After a few minutes, Renli appeared and asked with a confused expression, "Why am I in the west?" "Because Kongtong Mountain is in the west." And Chaoyang used 2 full stops to express his feelings. "Really?" Renli replied with a suspicious expression. Peng Liyun appeared and sent an emoji of Conan's twitching mouth. "You didn't study geography in high school?" Renli answered confidently, "That's right. The geography books didn't say that Kongtong Mountain is in the west." "Really?" Peng Liyun tagged An Chaoyang. And Chaoyang replied, "I graduated from high school more than 5 years ago. How could I remember clearly?" At this point, Luqing couldn't help but send a laughing out loud emoji. Peng Liyun didn't give up. "Luqing, do you still remember? I chose science in high school." Luqing smiled evilly. "As for the general geography exam, our school is very lax. As long as you don't flip through the books in front of the invigilator, you can do whatever you want. Even so, I didn't score 80. "It can't be? If you could flip through the books, you would definitely score 90 and above." For a moment, Peng Liyun doubted Luqing's IQ. He was in a daze for more than half an hour and still scored high in the general geography exam. Luqing sent an emoji of covering his face and sighing. "When I entered the exam hall, I realized that half of my geography book had been torn apart by my 2 troublemaker cousins. Luckily, I was surrounded by people I knew." "So you've always been stupid." And Chaoyang sighed. It was true that there were only wrong names, but no wrong nicknames. Recalling the embarrassing incident during the formation competition, Luqing quickly changed the topic. "Priest Renli, when are you arriving at Jiuqiu?" "I'm already there." Peng Liyun replied after 10 seconds. A few seconds later, Renli sent a link with an angry look. "Quick, go and scold him." Luqing clicked on it and saw a news article. The title was similar to the one he had seen before, but the content had more analysis and predictions. The Wisdom King, Zhihai, has been a physical invulnerability expert for 4 years and has received a title. Putting that aside for now, Peng Liyun, Renli, and Luqing have only made the great leap less than 3 months ago. They are considered to have just grasped the basics of their martial arts. Indeed, at the same level, they are indeed stronger than cultivators of the same rank in all aspects. If everyone leaps over the Dragon Gate at the same time, the strength they display will undoubtedly be the strongest. This is determined by a deeper and more solid foundation, and more outstanding talent. In other words, as long as they stabilize their realm and familiarize themselves with their martial arts, they will be considered to be the cream of the crop among the third pin experts. They won't be weaker than those veteran physical invulnerability experts who have been stuck at this level for many years. Of course, every physical invulnerability expert who can make the great leap is an outstanding figure. It's just that there's always someone stronger. Also, to be honest, many experts will be satisfied once they transform into a dragon and ascend to the heavenly realm. They will lose their hunger for martial arts and glory. Although they still persist in training, their improvement will obviously slow down. The reason isn't external, but in their hearts. Let's not talk about this. Back to the topic. Based on our previous analysis, we can determine the current strength of Peng, Lu, and Runli by comparing them to the Wisdom King. If only third pin experts participate in the master battle, they will have a chance to reach the end. Unfortunately, this is just a fantasy. Although it won't be like the Battle of Kings and Warrior Sages where many seniors who have retired from professional competitions will participate, at the very least, almost all the experts in their prime will participate, excluding those who are recuperating. They have a certain chance of winning against a rank 2, and a little hope of winning against a rank 1, but that's all. That's why a lot of the news today is just headlines. They're maliciously hyping up hot topics. Without any exaggeration, what they're looking forward to will happen 3 or 5 years later, not now. In this master battle, Lu Qing, Runli, and Peng Liyun will at most enter the top 32, and that will depend on their good luck in the draw. There's nothing wrong with that. After reading it, Lu Qing felt that the analysis was on point. Why did you scold him? Runli was silent for a moment. After a long while she replied, I sent the wrong link. It's this? She added another piece of news. The content was similar to a bet. It was guessing the chances of the 3 heavenly sons other than Ji Hai being eliminated in the first 2 days of the double elimination competition. There were 86 physical invulnerability experts who had signed up for the master battle. Including the 16 Inhumans who had passed the preliminaries, there were 102 contestants. The initial double elimination competition was where one would be eliminated after 2 losses. Only the top 32 would be left. Then, a single loss would be eliminated to determine the martial artist who would challenge the previous master battle. This bet was that Lu Qing, Runli, and Peng Liyun, who had just reached the physical invulnerability stage and lacked actual combat experience, would suffer 2 consecutive losses and leave the master battle without winning a single match. Pfft, why bother competing with such sensationalist people? Winning the competition is the best way to retaliate, advised Lu Qing, who had been through hundreds of battles in the field of public opinion. Yes. Runli nodded. Sensationalist is a good word. I'll reply to them. Did you understand what I meant? Lu Qing was momentarily speechless. He could only reply with a blank expression. Peng Liyun wasn't sure if he was in a daze and accidentally touched his phone, or if he shared the same feelings. And Chaoyang, on the other hand, asked calmly, Didn't you say that you didn't register an account because you didn't want to argue with others? My little niece lent me her phone. Runli answered frankly. Seeing that she was in high spirits, Lu Qing changed the topic. Runli, I'm going to Jiuqiu tomorrow. What about you? Shall the 3 of us get together before the competition? Peng Liyun was the first to reply. Why don't we get together after the competition? The one with the highest ranking, and the one who lasts the longest gets to treat. What do you think? Sure. Lu Qing and Runli gave affirmative replies almost at the same time. Their fighting spirit was further stimulated by this small bet. And Chaoyang smiled bitterly and said, I don't even have the right to treat. He had actually maintained his mentality well. As he was only 24.5 years old, and already had the strength of a 4th pin, he had plenty of time and hoped to make the great leap. However, no one knew how long it would take. I'm definitely buying this deal. Lu Qing teased himself as he left the group and shared this matter with Yenjika. She cooperated and sent a microphone emoji. Student Lu Qing, what are your goals and thoughts for this master battle? Mainly to see the world. Lu Qing replied humbly. In addition to this relatively peaceful attitude, he was also filled with emotions and yearning. Those mighty ones that I've seen growing up. Those mighty ones that I've heard so much about. I'm finally among you. I finally have the chance to challenge you. Warrior Sage Qian Donglu, King of Swords Wu Qiao, Kirin Dong Baxian, Lion King Shang Yid, Spear King Huang Ku, Clown Gu Jianxi, God-slaying Saber Lu Yongyuan, Evening Light, Liang Yifan. All the famous names flashed through Lu Qing's mind, making him feel as though his blood was boiling. The next morning after training, Lu Qing, Guojia, and Long Zhen were led by Empress Luo Ningzitong to the airport. They boarded the club's commercial jet and headed straight for Jiuqiu. Due to his previous injury, Lu Yan had chosen to give up on this master battle. However, he still tagged along to fulfill his duties as a coach. Outside the window, the sea of clouds formed a sea. There were occasional bumps, but to a physical invulnerability mighty one, such effects were negligible. The journey was smooth. They arrived at Jiuqiu City in the central region at noon, and boarded a few commercial vehicles arranged by the foreign affairs team. As usual, there were fans welcoming them in the hotel lobby. Lu Cheng and the rest signed their names. With the help of Amen and the other assistants, they got their room cards and entered the elevator. There's a pre-match banquet the day after tomorrow. Don't forget it. Ning Zitong reminded them as the elevator moved up. She turned to Lu Cheng and smiled. You have a high chance of playing in the opening match. Huh. Lu Cheng looked back at her in confusion. As one of the contestants, how high could his chances be during the draw? Ning Zitong smiled and explained. The three of you are in the limelight and are a hot topic. The organizing committee intends to pick one of you to play in the opening match. 1/3 chance. That's not low. Lu Cheng couldn't help but smile. Chapter 626. October 29th, Friday, 7 p.m., Jiuqiu City Martial Arts Association Banquet Hall. Round tables were placed neatly with 6 chairs around them. The red carpet extended from the entrance to the stage at the very front, dividing the hall into 2. Lu Cheng and the other mighty ones walked slowly along the long carpet amidst the flashing lights and clicking sounds. Outside the entrance, there were many security guards preventing the excited crowd from approaching. With so many physical invulnerability experts gathered, security was no longer a concern. Unless a nuclear bomb was launched, no one would be foolish enough to attack this place. However, there had to be someone to maintain order and prevent any opportunists. As soon as they left the focus of the media, Lu Cheng, who was following behind Ning Zitong, saw Peng Liyun in blue. He was wearing a combination of Taoist robes and training clothes. He looked relaxed, as though his mind was wandering in every corner of the hall. You're early, greeted Lu Cheng with a smile. He looked around and didn't see any other mighty ones from the Shangqing sect around Peng Liyun, including but not limited to the warrior sage, Qian Donglu. Peng Liyun's eyes gradually became clear. He smiled and said, You guys are late. After that he called out, Senior Empress Luo. Ning Zitong nodded slightly and asked elegantly, The warrior sage doesn't want to go out again? Martial Uncle Qian is like that. He doesn't like such social occasions, replied Peng Liyun. Everyone knew that although the warrior sage, Qian Donglu, was an outstanding figure that only appeared once in 1,000 years, he had a lazy personality. If he could sit, he would not stand. If he could lie down, he would not sit. He had no interest in such banquets. He found it troublesome to socialize with others, so he was often absent. What about the others? Asked Lu Cheng curiously. Peng Liyun's eyes became unfocused again. He seemed to have thought of something. While his friend waited patiently, he finally smiled bitterly and said, They haven't arrived yet. Following which he explained, Sect Master hates to take planes. He took the high-speed rail. Wasn't there a continuous downpour a few days ago? Many flights were cancelled or delayed. He only left today with Martial Uncle Yunyan and Senior Mingyi accompanying him. I'm the only representative from the Shangqing sect now. Lu Cheng almost laughed out loud. Ning Zitong, Long Zhen and the rest were right beside him. He didn't bother to exchange pleasantries with Peng Liyun. Instead, he searched for the nameplate on the banquet table and walked forward. After about 10 steps, Ning Zitong lowered her voice and chuckled. Do you know why Yun Yan and Ming He insisted on accompanying Taoist Wu Guang? A thought flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. Could this be the older version of Ren Li? We can't let a sect leader take the high-speed rail alone, right? He guessed hesitantly. Then leave it to the people from the External Affairs Hall of the Shangqing sect. Ning Zitong snickered. Not only is Taoist Wu Guang afraid of flying, but he also thinks that it's like a floating coffin. He won't be able to use it in the event of an emergency. Moreover, he's a sect master with a very weak presence. There was a time when the Shangqing sect's annual ritual ended without anyone noticing that the sect master never showed up. With Yun Yan and Ming He following us, the organizing committee will at least be able to remember that some of the participants have yet to arrive. This could be said to be very unique. Lu Cheng secretly complained. He looked around and finally found the table with his name written on it. Just as he was about to approach, another acquaintance entered his eyes. Renly, with her long black hair hanging loosely over her shoulders, opened her big eyes that seemed to only exist in manga, and accompanied a woman in a white dress as she passed by. The woman was bare-faced and had bangs that covered half of her eyebrows. She was beautiful and refined. At first glance, she looked like she was in her early 20s. However, her deep, dark eyes gave off the vibe of someone who had experienced the world. As a loyal fan of top professional competitions and title matches, Lu Qing recognized her without any introduction. She was the first Pin Mighty One of Kongtong School, Renli's master, Qi Ling, the blazing sword. From her appearance and outfit, it was hard to tell that she was from the same generation as her master, the Queen of Thought Fei Dan. Her exact age was kept secret at her insistence, but she was definitely in her 50s. She had been in professional competitions for 20 to 30 years, but she always lost the chance to win a title due to a freak combination of factors. Until now, she had only won a few intersect competitions and had no other honors. It was said that in the few years when Empress Luo debuted, she was often compared to Empress Luo due to her equally stunning looks and equally powerful strength. She was called Little Qi Ling, which resulted in a grudge between them. For a very long period of time, she was the victim of Empress Luo. Seeing Ning Zitong, Qi Ling smiled faintly. "Your dress is really interesting. It's so colorful and beautifully matched. It's nothing compared to Senior Qi's beauty. Even in the most ordinary outfit, you can still amaze everyone," said Ning Zitong with a smile. "However, as a former grandmaster, I have to be a little more formal when I go on stage to draw lots later." She emphasized the words former grandmaster. She had received 2 titles before, one was king, and the other was grandmaster. But both were before the Dragon King, and the warrior sage shone brightly. Qi Ling's expression froze for a moment. Then she nodded with an elegant smile. "Then I won't delay you." With that, she led Renli to the side. Throughout the entire process, Renli kept quiet like a lady and didn't say a word. After a few steps, Renli lowered her voice and asked, "Master, who was that just now?" "Ning Zitong from Longhu," replied Qi Ling calmly. Realization dawned on Renli. I knew the person beside her looked like Lu Qing. So it's really him. It had been close to 3 months since they last met. As a competent face-blind, she was already unfamiliar with Lu Cheng's looks. On the other hand, Lu Qing vaguely sensed the sarcasm in Empress Luo and Qi Ling's conversation when they sat down at the dining table. They were mocking each other for being old and coquettish, and Empress Luo had dealt a fatal blow with the title incident. Damn, this conversation sounds like a monk playing mind games. Gathering his thoughts, Lu Qing looked around and saw mighty ones he had only seen on TV. Some of them had been active for a decade or two, while others had just broken through a few years ago and were rapidly advancing. However, he was familiar with their names. As for their faces, some of them had even appeared on posters in his bedroom. At this moment, there was a commotion at the door. A man over 1.9 meters tall walked in. He wore a martial arts suit that was light white with crimson interspersed in it. It was made of a special material, and as he walked, it revealed his masculine and powerful lines. His sideburns were combed up into a bun commonly seen in ancient martial artists. His facial features weren't exactly handsome, but he had the air of a man who looked down on everything. He was the chief disciple of the Yanjiao League, a martial artist from the generation of Empress Luo, Ning Zitong, the 44-year-old Dongbaxian. Before the era of the Absolute Duo, he had received 4 titles. 2 were Challenger, 1 was Grandmaster, and 1 was Supreme Class. He was known as the Warrior King, and was a highly anticipated mighty one. Unfortunately, he was born at the wrong time and met the Warrior Sage and the Dragon King. A few years later, when Lu Qing was in his first year of university, he only received 1 Grandmaster title. However, he seemed to have gradually adjusted his mentality and walked out of the shadows. In the past 2 years, he had made further progress and regained his glory. He had received 2 titles in a row, the Warrior Sage last year and the Kirin last month. He had a spirit that didn't allow the Dragon King and Warrior Sage to monopolize the limelight. He had become one of the other martial artists who had received the most titles during the era of the Absolute Twins. Unlike the stern and dignified Dragon King, Dong Baxian had a smile on his face. From time to time, he would chat cheerfully with the physical invulnerability mighty one beside him. They were all members of the Yanjiao League. They were the beautiful first Pinlin Shuyao who liked to imitate famous figures from the Wei and Jin dynasties. The mighty one who Dong Baxian said would be a title holder in the future, the 29-year-old second Pin Wang Ke. And the third Pin Hu Shubai who had been praised by Wang Ke after just a year. Retracting his gaze, Lu Cheng saw the chairman of the Jiuqiu City Martial Artist Association, Li Hao, on the stage, ready to give a speech. At this moment, all the physical invulnerability mighty ones had arrived. The door slowly closed, leaving only a few media partners. After the guests gave their speeches, Li Hao, who was also the person in charge of the organizing committee, smiled and said, "This year, there are 5 new physical invulnerability mighty ones. As the goal of this competition is to nurture martial arts grandmasters, I would like to select one of them to open the curtains of this competition." In the first half of the year, it was Go Wen from the Xuanwu sect and Meng Liang from the Shizhou Island. In the second half of the year, it was August. Lu Cheng from the Ice God sect, Peng Liyun from the Shangqing sect, and Run Li from the Kongtong school. This was the year with the most martial arts grandmasters in the past decade. This suggestion received a round of applause from all the mighty ones. Li Hao got the hostess to bring over a large glass bottle containing 5 small balls. Each ball had a crack in it, hiding a ball of paper with a name written on it. Not 1 in 3, but 1 in 5. The corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He had a premonition that it should be him. He watched as Senior Li Hao took out a small ball, pulled out the ball of paper and unfolded it. "Longhu Club, Lu Cheng," said Li Hao with a laugh. As expected, Lu Cheng smiled and shook his head. "Let's welcome the former Grandmaster, Empress Luo Ningzitong, to select Lu Cheng's opponent for us," said Li Hao with open arms. Ningzitong stood up and gracefully went up the stage. From another box, she took out a ball of paper. She unfolded it and took a closer look. The corner of Ningzitong's mouth slowly curled into a meaningful smile. This made Lu Cheng's heart skip a beat. He had a feeling that this wasn't a good draw. After a few seconds, Ningzitong opened her mouth with a clear voice. "Wuyue Club. F***CK, what an ill-fated relationship. Don't tell me he's going to fight with my senior? Or the clown?" Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. In a loose sense, Wuyue Club could be considered his sect. Hearing these 3 words, a commotion broke out in the hall. All the physical invulnerability experts started discussing in low voices. Ningzitong paused for 2 seconds before continuing to announce, "Xian Xiaoye." "Phew, that's good." Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. She was a physical invulnerability expert from Hanqi sect of Wuyue Club. She had just made the great leap at the end of last year. However, she was definitely not to be underestimated. There had never been a physical invulnerability expert before the age of 30 in ancient times. Even now, there were less than 5 of them. And she was one of them. Chapter 627. Xian Xiaoye was chosen by the Hanqi sect at the age of 12, and was accepted as a disciple. However, martial arts was only one of her hobbies. At that time, she was bent on becoming a screenwriter. The next best thing would be to become a car racer. Therefore, she followed the usual routine of middle school and high school, and entered the Capital Film and Television Academy. Before she graduated, she was favored and became the assistant of a famous screenwriter, helping him to complete a cliched drama. This allowed her to make great strides in her career as a screenwriter. However, the subsequent developments were not satisfactory. A few independent TV series flopped, and she had a falling out with her mentor. She was almost forced to live in the basement of the capital. Only then did she remember that she was a professional 9th pin martial artist. She had to change her job and change her mood. Perhaps because she had seen and experienced it, she focused on martial arts and was 10 times more passionate than before. At the age of 24, she barely entered the dance stage. She quit her job and returned to the Hanqi sect to train hard. At the age of 28, She surprised her teachers and fellow disciples by transforming her root pulp and becoming an inhuman. Until now, no one believed that she could make the great leap. She only reached fourth pin at the age of 30 and was close to physical invulnerability. This further proved everyone's point of view. In this environment where there was no pressure and no attention, she pasted posters of Liang Yifan all over her room. She did not give up and did not turn to enjoy life. More than a year later, in the title competition, she met her idol in the first round. Under the terrifying pressure and the threat of defeat, she shone with unprecedented brilliance and connected the heavens and earth. She lost the competition, but on the path of martial arts, Xian Xiaoya took a crucial step forward, breaking the expectations of the Hanqi sect and even the Wuyue society. This late-bloomer mighty one had an interesting personality. Her favorite thing to do was to ridicule herself. For example, because of her flat chest, her Weibo nickname was Xian family's washboard. For example, she stood on the shoulders of her predecessors and successfully integrated some of the martial arts of the Death sect into the Ice sect, allowing some of the slower secret arts of the latter to explode with power quickly. When she was called Deadly Cold, she self-deprecated frozen dumplings. It had always been difficult to practice two supreme arts at the same time. The further one progressed, the more difficult it became. For example, certain moves of the Plague sect required a corresponding force to drive them in order to unleash their full power. However, under the premise that one mainly practiced the Wind sect or other arts, one would not be able to cultivate another force unless one did not want to transform one's root pulp and become an inhuman. Of course, there was a new method at the moment, and that was Lu Cheng's Tao of the universe and stars, the path of Dan formation through balance. Under such circumstances, cultivators who had 2 or 3 absolute arts, but could only cultivate one of them would inevitably feel unsatisfied. Thus, they began to explore other methods. They searched for similarities and connections between the cultivation methods, extracted the corresponding parts, and blended them into their own martial arts. In this regard, the Kongtong school had made remarkable achievements. After generations of exploration, they had finally integrated some of the unique skills of the Plague sect into the Wind sect, deriving many moves that were similar to biochemical weapons. In other words, Runli could use the Wind Empress force to unleash the hidden scent while only changing her visualization. There were many similar attempts. Techniques that were similar in nature did not necessarily need to be mixed. For example, the force of the Dark sect could allow the corresponding moves of the Death sect and the Plague sect to unleash about 80% of their power, and vice versa. The Wuyue society had a nearly complete set of the Ice Divine Arts, Ice sect, and a part of the Secrets of Killing, Death sect. Since its establishment, they had been exploring ways to use the former as a base and blend the latter. After several generations of mighty ones laying the groundwork, they had begun to see results in recent years. First, it was the clown Gu Jianxi who specialized in the Death sect. With his extraordinary intuition, he blended a small portion of the Ice sect's content in reverse. Subsequently, the Spear King Huang Ku and other physical invulnerability experts created their own moves. When Xian Xiaoya was at the inhuman stage, she had come into contact with the relevant content and had many ideas. When she had made the great leap and possessed the strength, she finally mastered and perfected the blending. She lived up to her predecessor's hard work, and the lethal chill lived up to its name. Various rumors about his opponent flashed across his mind. Lu Qing tilted his head and looked towards the seats of the Wuyue society. First he saw his senior sister, Shi Yuejian, who was smiling at him. Then he saw the clown Gu Jianxi, whose reputation was about to overshadow that of the Spear King. He had a hippie-like ponytail and various green tattoos on his neck and arms, including the famous clown tattoo. What left the deepest impression on Lu Cheng was his pair of eyes that were filled with arrogance, stubbornness, and unwillingness to admit defeat. According to statistics, in the past 10 years, the clown was the martial artist who had defeated the stronger martial artist the most times. On this list, Lu Cheng was also listed. However, compared to Gu Jianxi, he was still lacking. He approved and liked the media's description of his opponent. Born in the darkness, my heart is strong. Looking away, Lu Cheng finally saw the lethal chill, Xian Xiaoya. She looked to be in her 20s, with a well-proportioned body and wheat-colored skin. When she saw her opponent looking at her, she smiled and sent him a message. "Oh, not bad." To this, Lu Qing could only smile and nod. He had nothing to say. At this moment, a small number of media outlets had already released the news. Battle between fellow disciples. Lethal chill versus ice fire sky-shaking roar. Who is the coldest? Who is the coldest martial artist of this generation? First battle after the heavenly son of China made the great leap. In Lu Cheng's fan forum, a lot of cats sent an emoji of a confused dog's head. Comparing their nicknames, if I were Lu Cheng, I would definitely choose Dog Leash. Is it that bad? It has a wild sense of beauty, replied Bull Demon King with a smirk. Unparalleled Dragon King replied, covering face in sighing expression, why don't we pool our efforts and help him come up with a better nickname? Let's not talk about this first. Both of them have just advanced and are physical invulnerability experts of the Ice Sect. Whatever Xian Xiaoya knows, my idol knows too. What Xian Xiaoya doesn't know, my idol knows too. Is this an opponent that will give him free points? Asked Brahmin happily. Unparalleled Dragon King answered seriously. Not really. I heard that Xian Xiaoya's fatal chill is very powerful, and she hasn't used it many times yet. It hasn't been analyzed and deciphered by the outside world yet. Besides, it hasn't been 3 months since Lu Qing broke through. If he only trains in the Ice Sect or the Fire Sect, it won't be a problem for him to get started. If he trains in both, I suspect he still has moves he hasn't mastered. Let's not talk about these useless things. Anyway, he'll definitely win. Brahmin, you've become more mature after high school. You're not so childish anymore. Teased Eternal Nightfall, Yan Shaoling after seeing that the result of the draw was good. Yeah, unlike a certain someone who's still doing things the same way. Brahmin began to expose Yan Xiaoling's dark history. Yesterday, when I dyed my hair, I actually dyed it green. That's not true. I wanted to dye it brown, but Yan Xiaoling recalled yesterday. She was at a loss as to who she was, where she was, and what she had done. Unparalleled Dragon King was shocked. This is the first time I've seen someone voluntarily dye their hair green. No problem. Forgiveness is popular this year, said Okamoto's fan. Oh no, I thought Lu Qing would definitely win, but now I'm not so sure. Anyway, I'll definitely forgive him when the time comes. Wah, you guys cry out loud. I really only wanted to dye it brown, replied Yan Shaoling, feeling wronged. I just didn't look carefully when I was choosing. And the guy who dyed my hair was very handsome and gentle. I was busy peeking at him. Yeah. How can you call Chao's embarrassing action stupid? Said a lot of cats, imitating Kong Yiji's tone. For a moment, everyone was laughing loudly. The forum was filled with a cheerful atmosphere. They almost forgot that Lu Cheng's first physical invulnerability battle was coming up. At the end of the banquet, some were happy and some were sad about the results of the draw. Peng Liyun and Renli were lucky enough to be matched against third-pin opponents. At the end of the banquet, Lu Qing stood up and walked towards the Wuyue Club. His senior sister had arrived late and didn't even greet him. Shi Yuejian was waiting in her seat. Seeing him approaching, she smiled gently and said to him, I've heard from my dad that you and Renli joined hands and killed 2 physical invulnerability experts. This isn't your first physical invulnerability battle, so don't worry about you. She had a peaceful temperament. Although she loved martial arts, she didn't like to compete with others, let alone sharpen herself in life-or-death battles. So far, she hadn't killed anyone. This might be the reason why she was stuck at third pin. As for the martial arts fanatic, Guojie, she wasn't very talented. She only managed to make the great leap by relying on the word fanatic. After 4 years, she finally touched the edge of second pin. That's because the right time, place and people were there. Lu Qing replied humbly. After exchanging a few pleasantries with him, Shi Yuejian reminded him seriously, You must be careful of Xiaoya's fatal chill. Senior sister's tone sounds like the fatal chill is more powerful than I expected. Lu Qing nodded seriously and said, Thank you for your advice, senior sister. After parting ways, he returned to the hotel with the rest of the Longhu Club. He entered the room and chatted with Yenjika, who occasionally took time out during class, about the opening battle tomorrow afternoon. How was it? Are you confident? Yenjika knew that Lu Qing must have been watching Xi and Xiaoya's battle videos from the past year. In short, I'll give it my all. Lu Qing expressed his thoughts. He even looked up Xi and Xiaoya's battle videos from the past few years, trying to determine the situation of the fatal chill from the fusion of the ice sect and death sect techniques. Yeah. Nodding like a chick pecking at rice, Yenjika added. I'm so angry. Why is the battle in the afternoon? I can't even watch it. It's the middle of the night. It's fine. It's not like you'll be eliminated if you lose. Besides, she has surprises, so do I. Lu Qing comforted his wife. All right. Pointing at her finger's expression, Yenjika replied. The next afternoon, 2:55 p.m., Connecticut time, 1:55 a.m. A sharp sound rang and Yenjika was jolted awake from her dream. She was stunned for a few seconds before realizing what time it was. She turned off the alarm on her phone, rubbed her face, and ran to the bathroom with unsteady steps. She splashed her face with cold water and was completely awake. Taking out her tablet, she leaned against the pillow, found the live streaming website and started buffering. After a while, she saw the battlefield on Jiangxin Island, the spectators on the surrounding ships, and Lu Qing in his navy blue martial arts suit, standing opposite Xi and Xiaoya. Ladies and gentlemen, the opening match of this year's master competition is about to begin. Lu Qing from Longhu Club will be facing Xi and Xiaoya from Wuyue Club. They are both third-pin physical invulnerability mighty ones. As the commentator's voice drilled into her ears, Yenjika's lips curled into a smile. On the River Heart Island, shouts of Lu Qing and Lu Qing faintly reverberated around. Pretty popular, Xi and Xiaoya complimented with a smile. She was more than 30 meters away from Lu Qing, but with each other's hearing, they could hear each other clearly if they spoke a little louder. Of course, it would also be recorded clearly by the broadcast. Lu Qing was about to reply when the referee raised his right hand and waved it down. Conversation time starts now. He was a little further away and planned to walk to the edge of the battlefield. At this moment, Xi and Xiaoya spoke with great interest. I heard you can withstand negative 130 degrees for quite a long time. Let's talk about it later. Lu Qing smiled and started to prepare for visualization. Xi and Xiaoya watched in bewilderment until a faint purple fireball formed around her opponent and spun in an oval shape. Is this 9 rotations of 5 flames? Descent of the sun? Xi and Xiaoya made an accurate judgment, but the doubts in her heart grew. Didn't they say that maintaining the 5 flames was very mentally taxing and was a huge burden on the body? Didn't they say that Longhu Club's physical invulnerability experts would only use this move in a fight where they couldn't separate from each other, so that they wouldn't waste their energy if they couldn't hit the enemy after accumulating it? Why did Lu Qing use it during conversation time? Xi and Xiaoya and the audience stared blankly until 5 fireballs of light purple, golden yellow, blazing white, light blue, and crimson circled around Lu Qing like satellites. They rotated in a stable and balanced manner, like gods descending upon the earth. Only then did Xi and Xiaoya open her mouth in shock and confusion. You can do this. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.